My entitled mother-in-law literally won't stop calling me and my husband on our honeymoon, as she has interrupted every single moment me and my husband have tried to share together, even going as far as calling the hotels that we're staying at in some kind of weird attempt to occupy all of our time, leaving me incredibly frustrated and wondering what I should do next. Here's how it's going down. I'm a 24-year-old female, and my husband and I embarked on our honeymoon 2 weeks ago. We've been together for 6 years and we just got married. Every single day, both my parents-in-laws have called us, not even to check in on us, but instead to have full-blown rants about family drama, asking if we can organize A, B, and C when we get back, why we haven't sent any photos, and if we're gonna have their grandchildren yet. Now here's the thing, I was regularly posting on Facebook stories until my phone would blow up with both parents spamming us by text messaging. Now I don't mind the occasional text every couple of days checking in, but it's getting ridiculous now. We're talking multiple times a day calling in. It has gotten to the point where we literally took out our phone SIM cards so we could spend some quality time together, but my mother-in-law called the hotel asking for us. I sent them the itinerary so they could know where we were and that we were safe so they didn't have to call us to ask, but this just made things worse. It has ruined our honeymoon. Every time we were about to relax, boom, the phone rings, and if we don't pick up, we get constant text messages, and if we don't answer the text message, she calls the accommodation. I've tried telling her that we need some space to enjoy our love bubble being newly married, but she literally got hysterical. Now, it's important to note that my husband hasn't set any boundaries with his parents, and these people are particularly needy since he's now moved out and all this other stuff. They also haven't quite accepted the fact that he's an adult and has also reconnected with his biological family because he's adopted. So seriously, how do we set boundaries with his parents in a gentle way that won't hurt their feelings? What should I do? Oh man, if there's ever been a situation where you definitely need to put your foot down, it is right now. I guarantee you that your mother-in-law is never gonna let up from here on out if you don't set some serious boundaries. And unfortunately, I think you might have to be the one to do that because your husband is useless. Listen, there is no reason anybody should be calling you on your honeymoon, dude. Unless someone's died or like your house is on fire, like seriously, stop calling. And if I was in your place, I would be going to the hotel and being like, listen, don't forward any phone calls to our room ever again. There's no emergency big enough that we would ever need to answer anything from these people. Because seriously, this is so weird. And here's the thing, you're probably gonna hurt their feelings, like there's nothing you can really do about that. And the only way to not hurt their feelings is to just go along with it and be a pushover. But holy crap, you don't want to do that because they will be all over you for the rest of your marriage. And in my opinion, that is something I would want to set up like immediately, much sooner than later, because it begins with them calling on your honeymoon and then it's going to lead to God knows where else. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled client learns that professionals can in fact walk away, especially when they were as rude as the lady I had to deal with. And I'm honestly still blown away that they treated me so poorly, but also I'm so happy that I don't have to deal with them any longer. Here's what went down. So I work as an engineer and I do some consulting on the side, but typically only for people I know and as a favor. A good friend asked me to help his in-laws who were doing some fairly massive renovations and additions, and I agreed to do this solely because he asked me to do so. This is not something I have any interest or need in doing except as a favor. It's an old house and had can of worms written all over it with some of the changes they wanted to do. Now, he warned me that the mother-in-law can be unpleasant, but that was an understatement. She seemed to think that because I was getting paid, even though I charge probably a tenth what the business world would probably charge, that she somehow could snap her fingers at me like a servant. I had a few unpleasant emails with her, but it was tolerable. She was rude when I was pointing out issues with their plans, but nothing too extreme. Well, that changed when I started trying to find a time for me to stop by and inspect a few areas of the house just to verify some of the information. I offered times to stop by on the weekend, but that didn't work for her. I tried evening times, but still no. Nope, she wanted me to stop by during my office work hours because that was best for her. When I told her no, this gets done on the weekends or in the evenings, she went from rude to incredibly hostile, telling me that she is paying me and that I work with her availability, not the other way around. I then brought my friend in on the chain and told them that I was out and to have fun working with whoever they got. The friend apologized and said no worries, not my problem anymore, and she emailed me back quite stunned that I was walking away, telling me that this is not how business is conducted. But you know what? I didn't bother responding. About 3 weeks later, I get an email from the husband now asking me if I would reconsider, and he promises that his wife won't speak to me or be involved in any way. I hear from my friend that while the quotes came back much higher, which was tolerable for them, the biggest problem was how long they would have to wait for it. They just bought this house and wanted to move in as soon as possible, but it's an incredibly busy time of year for the industry. It turns out when companies you reach out to are drowning in work and you have a potentially convoluted and messy project, they are not chomping at the bit to get your business. So now they're gonna lose the trades they lined up because design would be a month or two out. I passed on the request as I struggle to believe that she would be kept in check and had no desire to bail her out. And my friend just didn't care, said that it was nice watching her attitude give her consequences that actually affected her in a negative way. Oh my gosh, this pisses me off so much. I can never understand why people act like this. Like seriously, all you have to do is be a respectful person and work with the person that's being hired, and then literally all this gets solved. Instead, the mother-in-law in the story decided to be like, oh no, you work for me. We're paying you. That means you have to come when I want you to be here. Like, I don't know about you, but if I'm not desperate for money, there's no way on earth I would ever put up with this. And it sounds like the original poster was doing this for like 1/10 of the normal rate that they would charge. So this lady's already getting a discount and still acting like an idiot. Like, dude, what's going on right now? Why are you biting the hand that's feeding you? So I love the fact that the original poster walked out and said, okay, have fun. This is no longer my problem, because this lady's attitude was so out of line. And there's no way that deserves to be rewarded in any way, shape, or form. Am I the jerk for making my sister's gender reveal cake gray? All because she wouldn't tell me the gender before the party. Because right now, everybody's pissed off at me. And at this point, I'm not sure how to fix the situation. Here's how it went down. I'm a 22-year-old male and I bake as a hobby. And I'm actually pretty good at it. Like, I get paid under the table for weddings and baby showers kinda good. My sister is pregnant and wanted me to make the cake for her gender reveal. So it's like, cool, no problem. I asked her to send me the info so I could prep the inside, either making it a classic pink or with blue filling. She then says to me, oh no, I want to be surprised too. Just make it neutral for the reveal and we'll all find out together. I was like, huh, so you want a gender reveal cake with no gender revealed? She says she'll have someone email the information to me later on, but that someone never did it. Deadlines come up and I still have no gender. So I make the cake and it's gray on the inside and gray on the outside. Just this full-on cement vibes. I even added little clouds for effect. It still tasted great, but visually it was incredibly grim. The reveal day comes along and they cut into it, and my sister looks pissed off. Her husband's confused and people start murmuring. Then she pulls me aside and says, why did you make it gray? That's so passive-aggressive. Calmly, I reminded her that no one told me the gender. And for reference, I did follow up a few days later to try and check on this, and she said, yeah, someone's taking care of it, even though nobody did. I said to her that I literally had no data to work with. I told her I wasn't about to guess or go full improv on someone's baby cake. Now, my mom says I embarrassed her in front of the family and that I should have tried harder. But tried harder to do what? Some of the gender through vibes? So am I the jerk for making the most neutral reveal cake in history? Because right now everybody's pissed off and I don't know what to do. Okay, yeah, I gotta be honest here, you kind of are the jerk. Like, seriously, what were you thinking? Instead of following up and calling them and being like, no, you don't get it. Seriously, you need to tell me what the gender is, or let me talk to someone who does know. Like, instead of doing that, you're like, okay, I'm gonna make a concrete slab. Like, dude, what are you doing? This is a gender reveal cake. There's no point in having the cake at all if you're not gonna give, like, I don't know, blue or pink filling in it. And don't get me wrong, I think gender reveal parties are stupid. Like, they've made forest fires before. Like, it's all just so dumb in my opinion. But it sounds like your sister really wanted this to be something special and it just did not happen. And I don't know, if I was making a cake for a gender reveal party, I would make sure no matter what, I had that gender regardless of what my sister felt. Like, that literally is 100% the job. You need to have something that says, oh, it's a boy or a girl, not just this gray slab that literally is expressionless. Like, what's going on? You couldn't even like mix it between the two and be like, ooh, I've got blue and pink filling in there in like a striping pattern. If you're really as good as you're saying, then why do you do something like that? Because your sister's right. Yes, that is incredibly passive aggressive. So from my point of view, I think you definitely are the jerk. And your sister has every right to be pissed off because this, in my opinion, was incredibly messed up. My toxic manager literally tries to performance manage me out of a job, as they tried to micromanage everything that I was doing to such an extent that they thought they would kick me out of my job purely from frustration. But what they didn't know is that I was up for the challenge, eventually beating them at their own game in a way that I am so satisfied by. Here's how it went down. Years ago, I worked for a supervisor who just didn't like me. No reason why, since I just came to work, did my job, and went home at the end of the day, but he decided that I was terrible at what I did and decided to performance manage me out of my job. Well, when he tried this, I said to myself, game on. He wrote me up for some vague BS and asked me to sign it, but since it didn't show any hard facts and data, I asked for some kind of examples of this. Well, the meeting ended with a document unsigned, since he literally didn't have an example for this. He then tried it again with an example this time, and I asked how often this would be reviewed for feedback, how the feedback would be given, and how the improvement or non-improvement would be measured. He didn't have a solid answer, so again, no document was signed and the meeting ended. The next time me and Human Resources were in the meeting and had had all his documentation and the answer to my question from the prior meeting, he decided to be so smart on how feedback would be given that he said it would be sent out daily via email. So I signed the paper and he gave me a smug smile. Well, the next day comes along and shockingly there was zero feedback given, no email sent for the rest of the week. I then get called into a meeting with the boss and human resources with a paper saying that there was no improvement and I was being put on warning for termination. But fortunately, this is where I said, I'm sorry, but can you show me the emails where feedback was given daily as outlined? Well, there were none, and eventually the meeting ended. The next day, email was sent with feedback, and I responded with facts and data. And on that first day, I didn't get any response back. The day after, an email was sent again with feedback. And yet again, I responded noting that I hadn't gotten any follow-up for the day before, and responded to that day's email with facts and data. On the third day, I again noted that I hadn't gotten any answers to the prior 2 days' questions, and added more facts and data for this one. I then followed up with the human resources person and I sent it back. Well, apparently after much discussion, my boss decided that it was too hard to performance manage someone out of a job, and my work was suddenly just fine after all. I love this so much because the original poster was like, oh, okay, we're gonna go on like the micro level of getting this done. Sure, let's do it. This is like StarCraft 2, baby, let's go. I'm ready for this crap. Because clearly the manager was just trying to like push you out of a job for some stupid reason. Like that's just so dumb, and it seems like they're just playing the game to try and like get rid of you instead of you actually doing something wrong. But good for you for keeping up with this and showing them how dumb this guy was truly acting. Because this kind of behavior is so annoying and so uncalled for. Today, I messed up by wearing my AirPods to a job interview and forgetting that my AirPods have a microphone, because I quickly found out that my interviewer could hear everything I was saying to myself before the meeting started, leaving me mortified that I ruined this job interview from the very start. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a couple days ago and I'm still cringing thinking about it. I had a Zoom interview for a remote position and it was full-time, had benefits, and seemed like a solid opportunity. So I actually took the time to properly prepare. I had my notes, I practiced my answers, and I even changed into a decent shirt. So I'm sitting there waiting for the host to join, and I've got my AirPods in like always. I didn't even think twice. And Zoom just said waiting for host, so I figured I had a minute to just relax. And for some reason, I started talking to myself out loud. Not loud, just kind of mumbling pep talk kind of stuff. Okay, just be normal, you got this. Don't ramble, smile, pretend like you have it together. Then I muttered to myself, you're not a mess. You just look like one right now. And that's when I heard it. Hey, we can hear you by the way, but no rush though. It turns out the interviewer had joined silently, and Zoom defaulted to my AirPods mic. So I had been broadcasting my little self-deprecating pep talk straight into the meeting. At that point, I just froze. I couldn't even think of a recovery. Just awkwardly laughed, turned on my camera, and tried to power through like nothing happened. The interview went okay, I think, but now the HR guy definitely knows I'm running mostly on vibes and caffeine. And I'm honestly still embarrassed and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, personally, in my opinion, and I can only speak to what I would do, if I was a recruiter of some kind and I heard somebody giving themselves a pep talk to get ready for the interview, I wouldn't see that as like a total like deal breaker. If anything, I would see that as really endearing. They're trying to like get it together and have a good interview. Like I would think that would be awesome. And I'm willing to bet the interviewer probably didn't care that much, because from the sounds of it, they're like, hey, no rush, but we can totally hear you, and just kind of moved on from there. Now, if they brought it up over and over again in the interview, I would take that as a bad sign and be like, okay, this is probably not going to work out. But I think the fact that you held your own is complete evidence that, yeah, you're probably good for the job, especially after dealing with something so awkward right on the spot. My coworker's psycho mother called me at work because her sweet boy had to stay late and work just like the rest of us, resulting in one of the weirdest conversations of my life, as this woman literally tried to scream at me about her 30-year-old son. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened last week, but I still think about it sometimes and feel both secondhand rage and pity. A new guy joined my team at the start of last month who we will call Sam. Sam is a quiet guy in his early 30s, polite to a fault, and always looking over his shoulder like he's about to get in trouble. At first, I thought he was just shy, but within a week, I figured that something was off. He would get these phone calls every 30 minutes, literally like clockwork. Eventually, I asked him if everything was okay, and that's when he admitted that it was his mother. She needed to know what he was doing at all times. Like literally, she would ask, where are you sitting? What are you eating? Who are you talking to? Those types of updates. He said he was raised that way and just never broke the habit. I could see him shrink into himself every time she called, like the life got sucked out of him in real time. Anyways, it's the end of the month, and we had to stay back late to wrap up some department reporting, and pretty much everyone had to stay a couple extra hours. It was quiet, we were all working, and suddenly Sam's phone rings again. He steps outside, and then 2 minutes later, he comes back inside looking white as a sheet of paper. He says to me, hey, my mom wants to speak with you. I thought he was joking, but he was not. He looked like he was about to cry. I took the call out of sheer disbelief, and oh boy, I wish I had not. This woman unleashed on me. How dare you make my son work past office hours? He needs to come home and rest. You don't know what he's been through. Don't you know how dangerous the roads are? I honestly was too stunned to even respond properly. I just said, ma'am, I think Sam can explain the situation better. And then I handed the phone right back to him. And that's when something amazing happened. Sam finally snapped. He didn't yell, but his voice was steady. I need this job, Mom. You can't keep doing this. I'm staying late because that's my responsibility and everyone is here too. Please, just stop. It was quiet for a second and then he just ended the call. And honestly, I was proud of him. I know how hard it is to stand up to your parents, especially when they try to control you your whole life. We wrapped up an hour later and I offered to take him out for a cold drink just to decompress, and he looked like someone who had finally removed a 20-year-old weight off of his chest. But when I dropped him off near his house, he gave me a small awkward smile and just said, "Thanks, tonight's gonna be rough." Now, I haven't heard his mom's voice since then, but he still gets those calls, but just less frequently now. And I really hope he makes it out okay. Some cages don't even have bars. You just carry them around in your head. Okay, dude, if my mom called me every single day in the way that Sam's mom called him, I think I would lose my mind. There's no way that's gonna be okay with me. I would tell her, hey, you gotta lose my number and stop this. You're literally embarrassing me. Because you know for a fact this guy's humiliated by this. He's in his 30s and his mom is bugging him constantly about what he's doing. Like, dude, that is not the age for anybody to be like, oh yeah, I need to know what my sweet boy is doing. But the biggest thing I took away from this, and the thing that I really like the most, is that the original poster didn't make fun of Sam. They didn't try to humiliate him, even though this is really funny and it would have been easy. Instead, they said, hey, let me take you out for a drink. And that for me is like, man, you are a good coworker and you have your head on straight. Because this was obviously so embarrassing for Sam as it is, so much so that he didn't need anybody else dogpiling on top of what was already an awkward situation. My manager demands that I stay where I'm at and do my job, despite the fact that there was nothing to do at my current location, and I was asking for something else that I could do. But after being verbally berated by this lady, I decided to maliciously comply, showing to her once and for all how stupid she truly is. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I used to work for a pharmaceutical compounding company. Now these are factories that are made up of several rooms of varying cleanliness, graded D through A, with D being the least clean. These rooms are thoroughly cleaned each day but required special deep cleans at least once a month. I was scheduled to work in the D box room, which is a grade D, where I would take medicines and devices out of their boxes, record the relevant numbers from each individual item before cleaning with 70% alcohol and sending them through an airlock hatch into a grade C room. However, on this day, the grade C room attached to D box was being deep cleaned and couldn't be used until the next day, meaning there was literally nothing to debox. I asked my managers where they wanted me to work, and the conversation went as follows. I said to them, hey there, since there's nothing in debox, should I go and help with the deep clean or go to unit A and B, which is a different set of clean rooms? They responded by saying, well, what does it say on the schedule? I said, well, it says debox, but there's nothing in there, and I don't want to spend hours standing around. They responded back by saying, if it says debox, then go to debox. I said to them, look, there's a deep cleaning happening. There's literally nothing to do in debox. They responded back by saying, there's plenty to do in there, so go and do it. I can't believe I'm having this conversation with you. Just do as you're told. So I went into debox. The contents of the room were an empty bin, a bottle of 70% alcohol, some wipes, and myself. So I cleaned the room with the alcohol, and then I stood around for 2 hours. Over the intercom, the people doing the deep clean asked what I was doing. I replied to them the conversation I had with the manager, and I got a laugh out of them, and they said, oh yeah, honestly, I'm not surprising. That lady's a jerk. And I then proceeded to stand still for another hour. After being standing stationary for 3 hours, my manager barged into the room and hissed at me. What on earth do you think you're doing? You've done nothing but stare at the wall for 3 hours. What makes you think you can get away with doing nothing when everyone else is working so hard? I tried to respond by saying, I'm doing what you asked me to do. But she said to me, this is not what I asked you to do. I told you to come in here and do your work. I then said back, well, I told you there was no work to do in here, and I asked to go somewhere where there was work. She then said to me, there was work to do in here when I sent you here. But I responded back and said, no, there wasn't. I wouldn't have asked for something to do if there was. She then screams at me, get out and go to Unit A. If you ever repeat this stunt, I will investigate you for gross misconduct. I then responded back by saying, if doing what you asked is gross misconduct, then you should probably investigate this particular incident. At this point, I walked past her and I went and I did my job in the other units. Later on, I was chatting to the supervisor who had been sat with her on the monitoring station. They told me that she had watched me on the camera for the entire 3 hours, getting progressively more and more wound up. Now, there never ended up being an investigation, and that manager entirely stopped talking to me until she tried and failed to fire me for totally different But regardless, it felt good to get back at her because her behavior was completely disturbing. Oh man, this is so so funny to me. You clearly have a manager who just doesn't know what they're doing, and they try to boss you around, but it ends up like backfiring big time. So good for you for putting them in their place, because that lady sounds like a massive idiot. My entitled sister refuses to parent her kids, allowing them to destroy my house and deface my property. And after she told me that she does gentle parenting and that she doesn't believe in any kind of discipline or punishments, I said enough is enough, resulting in me kicking her entire family out of my house as I simply couldn't take their awful behavior any longer. So now my sister's calling me a jerk, stating that I had no business to kick them out of my house. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. My younger sister and her family, which includes her husband, and her 2 kids, ages 3 and 5, were visiting my husband and I and staying at our home for a week. For a little bit of background, we don't live in the same state. I've had kids of my own, but they are young adults now, and they're out of the house. My sister is much younger than me and is very much still in the young family stage, and we've always had a pretty close relationship despite our age gap. My sister does gentle parenting. I had never heard of that before she came to stay with us, because I guess I'm just out of the loop since my kids are fully grown now. She explained to me that gentle parenting means that they don't do timeouts and they don't do grounding, but instead they just talk about their feelings. I thought it was a bit odd because it sounds like there's zero discipline going on, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to rock the boat. Well, that is until I saw this gentle parenting in action, and trust me when I say this, I was completely appalled. During the first 2 days of their stay, her daughter drew on my walls with crayon, and her son pulled up flowers I had recently planted in my garden bed and threw a rock at my car parked in the driveway. To top it all off, they both kept constantly pulling my golden retriever's hair and hitting my dog in the face. My dog is very sweet and a little on the older side, so she is very calm. She never bit or even attempted to bite, or did anything that would harm or spook the children. In every single instance, I was expecting my sister or her husband to discipline the kids, but they never did. So I stepped up and I did, or at least I tried. Anytime I would tell her kids to stop or scolded them in the slightest, it made my sister lose her mind. She told me it's not my place to discipline them, but I told her that someone has to, because they're messing up my home. But I went ahead and agreed that it should be their parents who scold them. However, it seems their parents are not willing to do that. I told her they need a fairly stern punishment for what they've been doing, and she started going off about how they refuse to spank their kids in the same way that we were spanked when we were kids. I told her that I'm not suggesting she spank her kids, but a stern talking to and making them clean up what they destroyed would be a good idea. She said that what her kids were doing was not worth what I would call discipline. All she did in every instance was ask them, "What kind of feelings are you having that made you do that?" And that was all she ever did. So I realized this behavior was not going to stop, and my husband and I told them that they need to find a hotel or they just need to go home. Even though we had planned for them to stay for a full week, we simply couldn't handle more than 2 days because of this gentle parenting. I told her that gentle parenting is going to cause her kids to have a very hard life, and there's going to be a rude awakening someday, with them probably even having jail time at some point. She argued back and really lost it when I told her that this hippie gentle parenting crap is just a complete scam and it will ruin your kid's life, which I do regret now, but I was so boiled over in the moment. Now at this point, she won't talk to me, and our mom says that I'm in the wrong for kicking them out when they planned on staying a lot longer. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Yeah, your sister's delusional if she thinks she's parenting her kids at all, because from the sounds of it, she just lets them run amok around the house and do whatever they want. And that really sounds obnoxious and very unfair. These people were letting their kids run around your house and basically deface and destroy your property. Not to mention the fact that they're hitting the dog in the face and pulling out their hair. Like the very second they start messing with that dog would be the moment I would freak out and be like, get out of my house. But even beyond that, for your sister to be like, oh yeah, we're just gentle parenting, that honestly is so ridiculous because I'm pretty sure you're just not parenting your kids at all. If anything, you're letting them run around and do whatever they want, and this is only going to make her life a living nightmare later on, and it's going to set up her kids for a rude awakening. Because I've personally seen people who raise their kids in this way, and it really does not work out in the end, because those kids grow up to be incredibly spoiled and very rotten, just right to the core. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for kicking them out, because their behavior was super disrespectful. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit, and again, check check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not having time for a close friend, all while I was planning my wedding that was happening in a month? Because right now he is very upset with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My husband and I got married a few weeks ago, and my mom had gotten the only reservation for the church that I grew up in, and it was a month away from the day that we got engaged. So my mother and I were tasked with planning this wedding in only 1 month. I also have a male best friend who we will just call John for the sake of the story. We used to be very close until I got into the relationship with my now husband. A little after I got into that relationship, he called me twice while really drunk to ask me about the Bible and why I serve a God that's done so many awful things. At one point in one of those conversations, my boyfriend at the time had to take over because he would get frustrated that I was using context as an explanation, and he would call me stupid and tell me that I must be fine with all these awful things in the Bible. So I was crying so hard that I couldn't even talk, and with that, my boyfriend took over. John was very angry and said some things that should have been kept between us. He said that it was my last chance with him, and I honestly think my brain at this point associated him with unnecessary stress. Fast forward, and my boyfriend and I got engaged, with all of the wedding planning starting right away. I mean, there was no breaks and no days off. There was only time to plan for the wedding. Sometimes I would call John and vent about how frustrated and tired I was because my mother and I are on totally different schedules, and it was really difficult for me to keep up. But for the most part, I didn't have time for my phone. I was simply too busy with wedding planning. About 2 weeks before the wedding, I found out that I'm pregnant, and that took a lot out of me. I mean, the exhaustion was absolutely unbearable. So, cut to a few days into my honeymoon, and I started to have some energy and some time. So I tried to get in touch with John, who normally picks up pretty fast. Well, he wouldn't pick up, so after a few days trying to call and text with no response, I finally said, "It seems like you want nothing to do with me. Is everything okay?" He then said to me, "Do I have to point out that as soon as you got engaged, you ignored me for months?" To which I tried to explain that I saw how it could appear that way, but that I was planning a wedding in a month, and it was so much that I had to do, and I was pregnant, and it was taking a lot out of me. And I also said that I haven't really been on my phone in general very much at all. And after I said that, he just stopped responding. After a day or so, I texted him asking what was going on. He seemed angry that I ignored him, but was now ignoring me. So I asked him, "Which is it? Do you want this friendship or not?" And he said to me, "No, I told you this was your last chance with me. I went from a big part of your life to having no part at all. It doesn't matter that you were busy. People make time for those who are important to them. I am done being hurt by you. You won't hurt me ever again. I am simply done." I waited a while, and then I responded by saying, "Okay, if that's your choice, then so be it. But if you can't understand that life happens, then you deserve no place in my life anyways." So am I the jerk for the way that I handled this? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I simply don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here at all. John sounds like a needy weirdo, and he seriously thought you were going to prioritize him over your wedding that was happening very quickly. Like seriously, this guy calls you up drunk and starts berating you because of your beliefs, and then tries to sit there and be like, "Wow, I played such a big role in your life and now I'm just not even there." Like he does know that you got married to your boyfriend, right? You literally just found out that you got pregnant and you planned a wedding in 1 month's time. That is so much work and stress that you have to deal with that honestly any reasonable friend would be like, "Oh yeah, they're just crazy busy right now." And to be completely honest, it kind of seems like John has like romantic feelings for you in some kind of way. Like it's such a weird time to be like, "Oh, you need to pay attention to me right now." Almost as if he's throwing some kind of temper tantrum at your expense. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. John has a weird attitude, and I just don't think he's a good friend, because any reasonable friend, even at a casual level, would never treat you this way in the slightest. My entitled aunt shows up unannounced right in the middle of me taking care of my dad, who's currently going through cancer treatment. And I'm honestly so sick of her attitude, and I hope she never comes back. Here's what happened. My father was recently diagnosed with a serious form of cancer, and he has 5 brothers and sisters, and all of them are very entitled and have no boundaries. I moved here to be the caregiver for him, and he has a sister who we will call Gina. Gina is not her real name. Gina decided to visit all the way from Colorado without contacting me or my father, and she even had her other brother drive her there and pick her up because she won't drive. She shows up and tells us that she needs a ride around town. Now, I'm working full-time caring for my dad. He is in radiation radiation and he's very weak. Not to mention that I'm trying to coordinate his care and his home. But according to Gina, I'm supposed to drop everything just to transport them around? No, that's absolutely not happening. Eventually, she gets dropped off at my father's house, and she just sits there, not offering to help me, my dad, or provide any useful help. And then there was a meal for my dad. He can't really walk well, but got up to go to the kitchen. Gina then actually tells my dad, who's on number 13 of radiation treatment, using a walker too, by the way, to fill their cup with some of the meal. My father has cancer and limited mobility, and you're the one that expects to be served? Like, is she being serious right now? I say, Dad, Gina can get her own soup. You are ill. Then Gina says incredulously that, oh, I can get it myself, which is like, yeah, no kidding. I eventually get up and I say that I'm going for a walk. She then says to me, I know that you don't like me, but I just ignore it and I start to leave. Gina then goes into the kitchen complaining about me to my dad. I then go to confront her yet again, and I said that if you have a problem with me, you can come to me and not him. I continued by saying, do you really think it's appropriate to ask your brother, who's in radiation with cancer, to seriously serve you food when you are capable? She pauses for a second, looks me in the eye, and then repeats that she knows that I don't like her. And I'm honestly just so done with these members of my extended family because the way she acted was incredibly inappropriate. Wow, talk about being completely tone deaf to what's going on in the house. Here she has her brother, who probably is rail thin and very weak, not to mention using a walker, and she's like, oh, when you go to the kitchen, can you get me some food? It's like, what are you talking about? No, get your own food, lady. Also, why is she even showing up to this house unannounced and waltzing in here as if her brother isn't like fighting for his life? That is incredibly disrespectful, and there is legitimately no good excuse for that. That is such an inconsiderate way of treating somebody who you know has cancer. Like, the least she could do is be helpful in that kind of scenario and try to help out around the house or at least take care of herself. So truly, good for the original poster for standing up for their dad and telling this lady to get lost and take care of herself, because her attitude coming to your dad's house was completely inappropriate. And if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My sister-in-law is trying to alienate me from my fiance, and as a result, this is causing massive problems between the two of us. And right now, I'm seriously so upset and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I met my fiance, who we will call Mark, on a professional conference 6 years ago. Things happened and we ended up moving in together after 2 years. He met my parents and my siblings, and he was really evasive when I wanted to meet with his family. I knew that he was at least on talking terms with his sister, who we will call Lisa, because they talked every 1 or 2 weeks on the phone, but he neither wanted to talk to me about them, nor did he want to introduce me. Now, we didn't use protection, if you know what I mean, so recently I've gotten pregnant. After we found out, Mark asked to marry me, which I agreed to on the condition that he would introduce me to his family. He really did not like the idea, and now I see why, but he agreed to it. I was really looking forward to it. I met with his parents first, and they seemed nice enough. They congratulated me on being pregnant, and overall, it went without any issues. But the day after, we met with Lisa. To start off, she refused to talk to me at all, and always would refer to me as it or even that thing. So hopefully you get the idea of how awful she was being. And then she berated me for not coming from a wealthy background like them, or being wealthy myself, and that my fiance was marrying down and debasing himself around people like me, and that he claimed he could be dating people in his class or people who at least look good. And we eventually went home after about 20 minutes into her rant. My fiance has always been much more successful professionally and therefore much more financially stable than I was. So there was already a power imbalance, even though it was innocuous, in our relationship. And it was always clear that he had, let's just say, a better upbringing than I did. Regardless, I felt really humiliated about the whole ordeal, and my fiance just told me that I was the one who insisted on it, which is fair, but I really hoped that he would at least comfort me. About a week after that, my fiance started indirectly questioning me on things, like where I've been or what I've been doing. But I told him to just tell me directly what he is getting at, and he said that his sister told me that I'm cheating on him because I work less hours than him, and according to Lisa, who knows what I'm doing in that time. Well, we had a big fight, and Mark started becoming increasingly distant to me, which obviously stressed me out a lot. We've been sleeping in separate beds, and he's giving me the silent treatment, but I know that it's mostly Lisa overloading him with all of her BS. I mean, can I even salvage our relationship at this point? I'm past the legal time limit for anything to do with our child, if you know what I mean, and I really don't want to raise our child in a broken home. I thought of reaching out to his parents to talk some sense into him, but I could not find them on social media with any kind of certainty. So at this point, I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I would not contact the parents at all. I think that's an awful idea, idea, and it's only going to give more fuel for the sister to like try and really ruin your life. Because it really does sound like his sister is like the reason all of this is falling apart, and that is not fair for you at all. Like seriously, just look at the way she's acting. She didn't even refer to you by your name. She called you it or that thing. Like how awful of a human being can you be if that's how you're gonna act around someone that your brother is marrying? And also, why is Mark not stepping in and telling Lisa to get lost? The fact that he's allowing his sister to talk to you that way and then try to blame you for even wanting to meet his family in the first place is just odd to me. If he had just explained why he doesn't want the original poster to meet his family, then all of this literally could have been avoided. So no, I would not reach out to the parents, but I honestly would have a conversation with Mark because his attitude and suspicious demeanor is not conducive to a healthy relationship, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to support my sister after she got a divorce based on the awful things she said and did during her marriage? Because right now she is very upset with me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister's marriage of 3 years is ending. She was with her husband for almost 5 years in total before the relationship came to an end. Now, I saw this coming before they got married. Deep down, I never saw this marriage lasting, or not lasting happily anyways. I brought up my concerns to my sister, and she told me I was wrong because she could fix all those problems. Now, let me explain what happened. My sister married a widower. They met 9 months after his wife died, and his 3 kids were under 11 years old when they got married. The kids did not adjust to their dad dating my sister, and they didn't like my sister. They just didn't want their dad with someone else, and they didn't want everyone to move on and leave their mom in the past. He really didn't get them any support during that time, and he did nothing about any concerning or bad behavior. My sister believed that she would win them over, and they would love her and think of her as a parent in no time. But she also had a very hard time hearing about her husband's late wife or their kid's mom. She did not like her family being around the kids because she felt like they talked more about their mom after seeing their maternal relatives. She did not like the fact that they held traditions with their mom close and refused to let her in on any of them. I think my sister was just engaged at the time, but her husband mentioned wanting this dish her late wife used to cook, and he even mentioned her cookbook. Well, the kids heard him say this, and they ended up hiding the cookbook so that my sister could never see it. And she even tried to coax them into handing it over, but they just never would. They said she couldn't do the stuff their mom did because she would never be good enough for that. But my sister really believed that she could fix all of that with time. The only thing that really happened is that my sister grew to resent the kid's mom over time. She didn't like being compared to her in a negative way, and having made it clear that she was never going to be the first choice. Now, I totally understand things like that being said to you will hurt, but she literally married a man who wasn't helping his kids through the loss, and she ended up taking it out on the kids. The marriage ended 2 months ago after my sister ranted at the kids about how much she hated their mom, and she was so glad that she passed away, and then gave the husband the ultimatum of choosing her or the kids. Well, he chose them, but without being asked to choose, I fully believe he would have stayed. So now my sister is living with my parents again, and my family have rallied around her, but I simply haven't done it. I do think my sister acted right, and while I feel bad for her about some of it, but I did air concerns, and she was so arrogant that she thought she'd be able to fix everything. My sister and parents keep bringing up the fact that I'm not there for her, and how I should be in this moment. My sister asked me if I really thought she was so wrong in this that I would withhold my support, and I just said yes. She and my parents have now said that I should be supporting my sister no matter what. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your sister basically walked into a minefield and made it way worse. She not only didn't recognize that her future husband was not a supportive father, but also she was delusional for thinking that these kids who very clearly did not like her would somehow miraculously learn to love her, despite the mounting reasons as to why that's never gonna happen. Not to mention the fact that she said to the kids, "Oh, I'm glad your mom's dead." Like, I don't care who you are, that is such an inappropriate thing to say, and she absolutely should be ashamed of herself. And I know if I had a sibling who said something like that, I would be appalled at their behavior and refuse to support them in that moment, because what she said is inappropriate. And if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever support that. Am I the jerk for calling the police on my neighbors after they were singing and yelling at 2 o'clock in the morning? Because now I'm fairly convinced that they found out that I'm the one that called the police on them, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live in an apartment complex with about 10 to 12 story buildings, and I live on the 3rd floor. 3 days ago, drunk men were really loud outside of my building. They were singing and yelling, and it was almost 2 in the morning. Now, I'm 21 years old, I work full-time, and I study full-time. It's currently exam season, so I was really irritated that they they woke me up, and I was also irritated that they weren't shutting up. I could hear many other neighbors asking them to please keep it quiet, but they weren't shutting up, so I just called the police. The police came, and I guess things escalated because they arrested one man. The next day, I could see Facebook posts in the neighborhood group, and surprisingly, the rude and angry comments were directed at a person who had called the police, and that person was me. And I soon found out that it was somebody's birthday. I then saw the following message: when the dogs are barking and howling all night, you don't seem to be bothered, but you are mad over sounds of fun and happiness. People are so unfair. May God bless you with many loud birthdays. Fast forward, and today a woman came to my door who was visibly upset as I could see her through the peephole, but I didn't open the door. She somehow figured out who called the police, and I figured she's the wife of the man who got arrested. She was calling me names and saying that I wouldn't be at home forever, and that I'll get my share of fairness, which in my opinion sounds like something sketchy is about to go down. So am I the jerk for calling the police? And should I apologize for calling in the first place? What should I do? No, you're not only not the jerk, but also you should definitely not have to apologize for calling the police. These people were screaming at 2 in the morning at an apartment complex. That is inappropriate, and it's probably against the rules of the complex itself. Like, most places would have some kind of like quiet hours that people have to abide by. So for these people to be like, wow, you don't like anything fun, that seriously is such an awful cop-out, and there's really no good excuse for that. When it comes to the lady knocking on your door and basically making these veiled, sketchy remarks towards you, I would not take that lightly in the slightest, and I would even go as far as reporting that to the building manager or even the police. If that really is the wife of the person who got arrested, then they should be mad at their husband and not the person who called the police. You're not the reason this escalated, they are. And if you haven't already, and if you're able to in your apartment complex, I would definitely get one of those doorbells that has a camera on it, because your neighbors sound incredibly crazy, and that is not something that you should have to put up with in the slightest. An entitled Karen demands that I give up my seat in first class, all because she forgot to buy her toddler a ticket on the plane. But when I refused, this lady made such a scene on the airplane that it nearly got her kicked out and banned from the airline. And I'm honestly still blown away by the way she treated me, as well as her sense of entitlement over the situation. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was a couple of years ago, but I just can't get it out of my head. So I thought I'd share it online for all of you to hear. My family lived across the country back then, so I would usually buy a flight to get there. Well, this was during the holidays, so everything was backed up and there was a lot of storms. So when I got to my first layover, my flight was canceled and they couldn't get it in their system to get me a hotel. So I slept on the airport floor that night, just clutching my bags. By the time I got onto the plane, I had spent 24 hours in the airport. But luckily for this flight, I had booked first class. So I get on the plane and I get comfortable, and I'm just so happy that I'll be home soon after the last couple of days that I had just had. But then something absolutely ridiculous happens. A really nice flight attendant comes over to me and points at the empty seat next to me and mine. She then tells me that a mother forgot to book her toddler a ticket, and she was wondering if they could take my seat and the empty seat next to me. I told her that I'm really sorry, but I've had a really long day, and I paid extra for this seat, and I honestly would like to stay. Now, the flight attendant, to their credit, was very nice to me and said no problem. But unfortunately, she let the woman come sit in the empty seat next to me with her toddler in her lap. This woman then immediately looks at me with a scowl and says to me, "I can't believe you wouldn't trade your seat for a kid." I look at her and I simply tell her, "Ma'am, I paid extra for this seat. You should have booked a ticket for him, and that's honestly not my fault." Then she keeps going off, saying things under her breath and to her toddler that I can't even hear. And then to top it off, she tells her kid to make the most noise that he can and to do whatever he wants. And she keeps saying things to me the entire time, and I honestly can't believe this entitled woman. I finally lash out and I scream, "Will you please shut the F up?" Now, trust me, I'm not very proud of myself for this, but with the last couple of days that I had, I simply didn't care anymore. But eventually, my common sense came back, and I apologized for swearing in front of her kid, even though I heard this lady call me a swear word and many other words. And yet again, for quite a while, this woman would not shut up. But finally, my savior came. The really nice flight attendant came over and bent down to the woman's level and said to her, "Ma'am, you were lucky to be able to switch seats, and all I've heard from you since you switched is you saying awful things to this person and telling your child to be noisy. The plane hasn't even left yet, and we have no problem kicking you off this flight. And if you continue to do this while we're in the air, you will be banned." And I honestly couldn't help but smile that she finally shut up, because this entitled Karen was honestly one of the worst people I've ever had to deal with. Wow, I can't imagine being that irresponsible where you don't even get your toddler a ticket on the plane, but also to act like you're entitled to a first-class seat all because you have a kid with you. But to top it all off, she not only gets the seat in first class, but she then tries to berate the person next to her and be like, oh, I can't believe you wouldn't give up your seat for my kid. It's like, what are you talking about? This is not the original poster's fault all because you can't plan properly. Just because you have a kid and you're irresponsible for that kid doesn't mean other people around you have to pick up the slack. Like, that really is unfair and so entitled. Like, maybe if the entitled Karen of this story was a better parent, she would have been able to get a seat for her kid instead of whatever she tried to do with the original poster. And this all literally just comes down to entitlement. She was using her kid to try and guilt trip everybody else around her just so she could get what she wanted. Not to mention that she was trying to steal a first-class ticket. Like, it really could not be more obvious what she was trying to do. So seriously, good for the original poster, and especially to the flight attendant for stepping up and putting this lady in her place, because her behavior was absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for cutting ties with my old best friend after he excessively lied to me, essentially breaking my trust entirely, resulting in us not talking again after almost 3 years? Because right now I feel awful, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So back in 2021, my former best friend and I got into a really huge fight over his deceitful behavior during COVID. So at the time, I had just gotten married and I was finishing up the final capstone project for my degree. He had lost his job due to layoffs and had been caught lying about having a job when he didn't. It also didn't help that he had a lying problem with strangers and would make wild tales just to appear more interesting. When he was confronted to show proof of his employment, he made a huge song and dance out of trying to convince me that all the evidence just wasn't available, almost as if it just magically vanished. Now, he and I were friends for almost 20 years. This was the biggest thing he had ever lied about, and it was pretty serious given the fact that I was lending him money just so he could get by, only to then watch him crash and burn and spend it a few days later. So I confronted him about it, and rather than admit to it at first, he tried digging his heels in deeper and continued to lie. It wasn't until after the cops got involved and that he came back to begrudgingly apologize that he finally admitted to it. And it turns out that he had been lying to me for years and got some kind of rush from it. We ultimately agreed that we shouldn't live together anymore, and I put him in a place where he didn't really have a say, but I was so done with it. So I set my boundary. I kicked him out of the apartment because I couldn't trust him anymore, and we stayed in contact while he took his stuff out of his old bedroom. Now, after everything was done, he sent me some pretty petty last words, trying to make it sound like I didn't care and how I should have been there for him even when it got bad. And I just told him that I'm sorry I wasn't the person he needed me to be, but I was trying to finish school on top of paying for all the bills out of my student checks, and I was also maintaining a side hustle just to make sure we had what we needed. He then told me that he hated that he had to apologize and that he wanted nothing to do with me. So it's safe to say that I felt more betrayed, and even after I showed all that patience, and I just felt like I needed to set the record straight. So I called his family and I talked with them one-on-one about the situation because they're the only people who have known him as long as me. I exposed what he did from my side because he was still lying that we were not talking even when we were, which to me sounds like he was planning to cut me off as soon as I was no longer of use. I felt like I had no more loyalty to him after all the betrayal I had experienced. So this was going to be his karma. And you know what? I felt completely justified. And the thing I hate the most is that I did something terrible and I felt like I was the hand of karma or something like that. It's been almost 3 years as of writing this out, and I teeter back and forth on what was right or wrong. I have a baby on the way and I'm happy in my marriage. I have a career that I love and life is good. There's maybe still a part of me that wishes the two of us could be friends again, but so much was burned that I just don't know if we could or if we should reconnect in any way, because this simply could not happen without some major fundamental changes. And on top of that, my trust is broken. He is not the same person I grew up with, and I'm sure he would say the same about me. In many ways, he will always be like a brother to me, but it's also good that we're apart to live separate lives. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You're not the jerk at all, and honestly, the fact that he's like, oh man, it hurts me to have to apologize, that alone is the biggest proof you ever need to show that this guy not only has no remorse, but he also is a complete scumbag. If he really considered you like his best friend, then he would be happy to apologize to try and sort things out. I know that's how I feel with my friends. There are many men and women in my life who I consider really good friends that I would never want to be at odds with. If I offend them in some kind of way, then I would definitely want to apologize. I would never want without some lingering tension over something that I might have done. And that goes the other way too. I would hope and probably expect that my friends would apologize to me if they've done something to offend me. Like, that literally is how friendship is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this one-sided relationship where one person can expect all this stuff and then try to be irrational when things don't go their way. And it really seems like that's the way this guy is acting. He's literally acting like a spoiled brat, and it's all at your expense. And that's honestly just completely unfair considering the fact that you're so busy with so many other things. So for him to be like, man, I hate having to apologize, on top of lying to you all the time, for me kind of shows that he's not really a good friend. This definitely was a one-sided relationship on your end, and I'm so sorry that this is how you have to find out about it. So no, you're not the jerk for cutting him off, but also I don't think it would be a good idea to welcome this guy back into your life. He's not someone that's gonna be there for you in your time of need, but instead he's only gonna take from you. And honestly, in my opinion, I do not think that you deserve that in the slightest. My fiance is hiding my medication from me and is refusing to allow me to take my medicine, despite the fact that I have so many mounting mental health issues. And I'm now at such a loss that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My fiance and I have been together for a total of 4 years, and we're getting married this August, and we have a 2.5-year-old son as well. For reference, I am diagnosed with bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, general anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and obesity, and my fiance is diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. My family has extensive history of mental health disorders, and my childhood was traumatic. I've always had issues, but they got worse after having my baby, and I was finally receiving extra care through a postpartum program, so I received medication for the first time. It's an antipsychotic and an antidepressant. I took those for about 1.5 years, and they helped me a lot. Things weren't perfect, but I was much more level-headed and capable of facing life's challenges. Well, around last fall, my fiance decided that he can't stand me being on medication. He never loved the idea, but he really started to hate it then. I gained 30 pounds from the antipsychotic, and that was certainly part of his concern, and I'm now 40 pounds heavier than when we got together. Over the course of many months, he would guilt trip me every single day for being dependent and encourage me to come off my medications. He believes that I'm being manipulated by Big Pharma and being prescribed something that I don't really need. I consulted a psychiatrist, and they did not support me coming off my meds, but helped me do it anyways. I've been off my medications for 1.5 months, and guys, it is not going well at all. My mood swings are incredible. I'm aggressive and mean, I'm violent, I'm having insane manic episodes, I spent literally all of my money, and I'm also having miserably depressive episodes. I also had a 4.19 GPA in school, but this semester I'm failing. My fiance believes that if I have proper sleep, eat half my maintenance calories, and exercise among other healthy habits, then my mental health issues would be resolved. And believe me when I tell you that he puts immense guilt and pressure on me every day to push these things on me. Now, my mom and his mom, as well as my siblings, my friends, my 2 therapists, my family doctor, and myself all believe that I need to be medicated. He says he refuses to marry someone who's on these types of medications and has given me that ultimatum. I had a very scary manic episode last week, and I reached for my antipsychotic medication, and he wrestled it from my hand, spilling it all over the floor. He then picked them up and hid the bottle from me and refuses to tell me where it is. Yes, I know these are red flags, but please remember that he has Asperger's syndrome and that I'm putting him through a lot. He cries every day from the stress of dealing with my mood swings, but he believes it will get better without medication, but I just don't think it will. My question is, how can I possibly navigate this situation? How can I convince him that this medication is not some illegal substance? It's literal medicine to ease the symptoms of a very real condition. How can I convince him that these intense symptoms are not only withdrawal? And how can I convince him that all those cruxes of health that are so important to him that I achieve cannot be accomplished or even worked on while I'm struggling just to stay sane? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, no, him having Asperger's syndrome has nothing to do with this. So I think you need to get that part out of your head like right away, because his behavior and the way he's acting is completely insane. This guy's really trying to sit here and be like, oh yeah, you can get over these manic episodes by getting better exercise and getting more sleep. It's like, what are you talking about? Modern medicine is a wonderful thing, and for someone who has all of these issues going on, in my opinion, medication is probably like the best thing they could ever do to try and like fix their life up. Like, why on earth would he take all this medication away from you and be like, no, I don't want to be with someone who's on medication like this. You can get over this. Big Pharma's brainwashing you. Like, dude, you're insane. Does he not see the shift in her attitude and her demeanor after the 1 month of being off this medication? That was all clearly helping her be like a functional member of society, and now this has all been completely derailed because of this weirdo. So if I was in your shoes, in my personal opinion, I would be questioning and rethinking this entire engagement altogether. Like the fact that he wrestled your medication out of your hands and has now hidden it from you, in my opinion, is all you need to see about how he's gonna be when you guys get married. Because this kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and I truly believe that you deserve somebody way better than this. Am I the jerk for refusing to move my wedding date, all because my competitive stepsister is angry that I'm getting married before her? Because right now I'm exhausted and very frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my stepsister, who we will call Wendy, has always been competitive with me. It was mostly fueled by her mom, who was always extremely competitive between the families, but it was Wendy who kept it up. I'll admit I fed into it a bit when we were teenagers, but I grew out of it. Meanwhile, she never did. She goes out of her way to try and one-up me, and she thinks everything I do is a one-up towards her, which just isn't the case. And that's honestly the background to the main issue. Wendy is getting married in November, and she's been planning the wedding for over a year. Well, I got engaged a month ago, and my fiance works an extremely high-pressure job, and because of the nature of his job, next year and the year after will be incredibly stressful, and it's part of the reason why he proposed when he did. I don't want to wait 2 years to get married, so I got in touch with our wedding planner, who was able to work something out so that he can get married in August. It will be an extremely small wedding, with a reception dinner of about 20 people over one weekend, and this is in contrast to the 150-person traditional wedding that Wendy was planning. Wendy is livid that we're planning to get married before her. She knows the reasons why, but she still insists that I've planned this to upstage her wedding. She is giving her dad no end of garbage for putting money towards my wedding, and in her own words, to help me humiliate her. She is also causing trouble amongst mutual friends that she has with my fiance, but this is not a huge deal because they're not wanting to get involved. But regardless, it was extremely embarrassing because she announced the date of our wedding before we did. My mom and her dad are now hinting that maybe we should move the wedding. They keep saying that maybe a winter wedding, I guess after Wendy's, would be better, and that it would be nice if the family could attend both weddings with everyone on good terms. My stepbrother has also said that while he knows I didn't do it on purpose, because of past issues, this will be extremely hard for Wendy to get past. He also said that I was naive for thinking that just because my wedding is different from hers, that she would somehow just let it go. And you know what? He may be right about that. I still don't really want to change the date of the wedding, and I don't think doing it in the winter will appease Wendy in the slightest. And for me to wait over a year just because of her childish vendetta seems really grossly unfair. But I don't like to be the one to rock the boat, and I do sometimes feel a bit sorry for Wendy. Maybe this isn't the time to take a stand, but right now I seriously don't know if I'm in the wrong. To be completely honest with you, I think Wendy sounds obnoxious, and she clearly has some issues with you that you just don't have with her. So no, you're definitely not the jerk in this scenario, because you're literally just having a wedding at the best time for you and your fiance, and the only person making this into some kind of like competitive situation is Wendy herself. And I bet that Wendy would probably even throw a fit if you did have your wedding after her. She would somehow make this into some big issue of like, oh, you're trying to one-up me by having a wedding after me. Like she's gonna probably make a big deal out of this no matter what. And in my opinion, I would just not care what this stupid lady has to say about you, because at the end of the day, you know your situation way better than anything she could possibly say. And if this is the only time that you can get married, then by all means get married, regardless of whatever Wendy might have to say. My entitled parents have constantly been trying to control every aspect of my life, demanding that I be perfect, while also criticizing any decision or friends that I ever make along the way. But it all hit a breaking point when they tried to demand that I quit my job so that I could find one that they approve of. But despite the fact that I worked hard to get my career and that I had so many things going right in my life, I decided that enough was enough, and I finally stood up for myself and set some serious boundaries against my entitled parents. And I now have the freedom in my life that I honestly never thought I would ever have. Here's what happened. So for as long as I can remember, my parents have controlled every aspect of my life. They demanded perfect grades, picked my friends, and decided what hobbies I could pursue. Nothing I did was ever good enough for them. If I got a 95% on a test, they would ask why it wasn't a 100. If I made a new friend, they would scrutinize them until they found a reason to disapprove. After I graduated college, I thought things would change. I landed a decent job, and I moved into my own apartment, hoping to finally gain some independence. But my parents had other plans. They started showing up unannounced, criticizing my choices, and trying to dictate my career path. They even tried to control who I dated, insisting that no one was ever good enough for their precious child. The breaking point came when I got a promotion at work. I was over the moon, but my parents were not. Instead of congratulating me, they berated berated me for not consulting them first and told me the new position was a mistake. They insisted that I should quit and find a new job that they approve of. And when they said that, I was devastated and furious. How could they not see how hard I had worked and how much this meant to me? I realized then that nothing would ever change unless I took a stand. So I did something I had never done before. I stood up to them. I told them that I was an adult, capable of making my own decisions, and that their constant interference was no longer welcome. When I said that, they were shocked and angry, accusing me of being ungrateful and disrespectful. But I didn't back down. I told them that if they couldn't respect my boundaries, they were not welcome in my life. It was the hardest conversation I've ever had, but it was also the most liberating. For the first time, I felt like I was in control of my own life. I stopped answering their calls and messages unless they respected my boundaries. It wasn't easy and I felt guilty at times, but I knew it was necessary for my own well-being. Fast forward a few months later, and my life had transformed. I was excelling at my job, I had made new friends who supported me, and I was in a healthy, loving relationship. My parents eventually came around, realizing that they had pushed me too far. They apologized and agreed to respect my boundaries, and our relationship improved significantly. Standing up to my entitled parents was the most challenging thing I've ever done, but it was also the best decision I've ever made. It taught me the importance of self-respect and the power of setting boundaries, and now I'm living a life that I'm proud of, completely free from their constant criticism and from their control. Wow, that's a really good story to hear because honestly, that is really important. For reference, the original poster is a 29-year-old male, and it sounds like they spent their entire life dealing with this behavior, and that is honestly so ridiculous. Like seriously, it doesn't take much to be decent parents and at least support your kids when they're trying to do something fun. That's honestly mind-blowing and just so toxic. Also, the fact that they're like, wait a second, you didn't consult with us first when you got that promotion. You need to quit your job and find something else that we approve of. Like that part alone is insane to me, and there's no way that's ever gonna happen. The original poster worked hard to get where they're at in life, and they're not about to be slowed down by their weird entitled parents. Like they do know that their son is 29 years old, right? I can understand to a certain extent them having some kind of standard for while you're a kid, but you're literally a full-grown adult. You are well beyond your years of living at home with them, and you actively have your own life that you're living. For them to come after you in this way and be like, no, you have to have a job that we approve of. Like that should have been the first sign that they definitely have gone way too far and that they seriously need to pump the brakes, because this entitled demeanor and awful attitude is so unacceptable. And I'm honestly so glad for the original poster that they were able to get out from underneath that and find some kind of happiness in their life. My entitled neighbor is scaring off buyers who are trying to buy my condo, constantly making snide remarks as well as potentially racist ones to anybody that she doesn't like. Things are so bad that I'm now considering going through legal action just to try and get this lady to leave me alone so that I can finally sell this condo. Because right now I am completely at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 40-year-old female and I'm selling a condo I own in a different state from where I currently live. It was a rental unit for the past year, but I lived there for 3 years prior. My neighbor, we will call her Mary for the sake of the story, has lived in the complex for over 20 years and owns 2 other units in the building that she rents out. I moved in at the beginning of the pandemic and immediately noticed her in the common areas, always wearing a mask and keeping a distance, and I thought that this was great at first. Well, time goes on and we have more interactions, and I learned that she doesn't believe in service animals. For reference, I have a dog who is certified, and I provided that to the HOA upon purchase of the unit, as our HOA doesn't allow dogs, which is a different issue that you definitely do not want to get me started on. And here's the thing, the HOA has no problems, but Mary apparently does, and makes it clear when she sees me and my dog that she doesn't believe that he should be allowed to live there. I told her to take it up with the HOA or the state disability office if she has any questions. Over the years, she kept her distance, but our passing conversations allowed me to determine that she was an anti-vaxxer and she had some really weird political opinions. She never stopped wearing her mask, and she liked to point out to me that she was still wearing it so people like me wouldn't be scared because she wasn't vaccinated. Now, I was vaccinated by that point, and I told her thanks, but I believed in science, and I was vaccinated, so even if she did have it, I would be fine. This, of course, set her off rumbling down the walkway, muttering stuff under her breath. The year that my tenant lived there was very uneventful, and I never heard from my tenant or Mary. So I list my condo in April, and I get an all-cash offer in May, so I start the escrow process. About a week into escrow, I get a call from my realtor that the buyers are canceling because of an interaction they had with Mary while they were at the condo during the inspection. According to the buyer's agent, Mary approached them and told them that there were plumbing issues in the building, but then said not to worry because she knew the building and everything was fine. Now, there have been plumbing issues in the past that the buyers were aware of and were included in the disclosures. My realtor also said that there was a comment she made about the buyers being Asian, so my fear is that she also made some comment to them that was racist in some kind of way, and that is the actual reason for them canceling. Yesterday, I had a contractor there doing some repairs, and my realtor called and said that Mary was following him around outside, grilling him about what he was doing and why. And now I have an extra 1.5 hours that he's charging me because of her interruptions. I've reported her to the HOA, but they are completely worthless, and they just take her side because she's been an owner for so long. I'm considering some type of legal action next, but I don't really know where to even start. So I'm overall incredibly frustrated, and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, that really sucks, and I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. I can't stand neighbors who act this way, and I can only imagine how frustrating it is when you have a neighbor who's acting like a complete weirdo while you're literally just trying to sell off your property. Like, that is so unfair and just completely obnoxious. So truly, I hope this all gets worked out for you and you're able to sell this property despite the fact that Mary's acting incredibly entitled. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for wanting to report my coworker to HR after they threw a temper tantrum and stormed out of our store, literally right in the middle of our rush hour? Because right now I am so sick of their behavior, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been working retail since 2020, and it's been a pretty stable job as I've been with the store that I've worked at for almost 4 years now. Just last year, we've had someone else join the crew that I will call Perry, and they have some pretty serious problems. They have a history of locking themselves in the bathroom, and they stay there for 45 minutes. And sometimes they will just have a conniption fit and walk off before they can even finish their shift. We have tried getting this person reported to the higher-ups several times before, but it's all to no avail. Every time this happened, HR would talk to them and Perry would play the victim card, make up some excuse for their behavior that had nothing to do with what actually happened, and then they would also say they're going to get the union involved on the basis of discrimination against them. However, the incident that took place today may have been the straw that breaks the camel's back. Every Friday, we've been doing these special promotions that would get customers extra fuel points on their orders that they would use to take money off the next time they got gas at the store's fuel pump across the parking lot. Now, Fridays are always the busiest days for our stores besides Sundays, and it's an all-hands-on-deck day as we usually have 18 to 20 orders every single hour. We've had 2 people call in sick, and it's me and my manager running out the orders alongside Perry, who had only just gotten there 2 hours ago. The notification board that lets us know when customers arrive was going off like crazy, and it was completely full. Perry took notice of this and asked my manager, who we will call Tyler for the sake of the story, if it was going to be like this all day. Tyler then told them that yes, it's probably going to be like this until 6:00 p.m. Now, at this moment, I nodded in agreement because I've pretty much gotten used to the exhausting workload and the rapid arrivals of customers at this point. But after Tyler answered, Perry immediately began to pitch a fit and threw their uniform to the ground, and the customer's order that they were about to run outside followed shortly after. They were screaming that this was way too much work for them and that they didn't get paid enough for this garbage. Tyler and I were just standing there in complete and utter shock as they had another tantrum and ran away to avoid their responsibilities. Now, this is where I feel like I would be the jerk. I'm not exactly close with Perry, but we do talk while we work and have a pretty good working relationship. However, after I saw that, I just can't defend their behavior or even come up with a rational explanation for what happened. I feel I need to report this to HR, and my report would be totally anonymous because of company policy, but I still worry that Perry would find out because then I would be another one of their coworkers who reported them, and it would have a very disastrous domino effect. Like if they wanted to sue the company on the basis of discrimination, everyone who witnessed their tantrum would be named in it. At the same time, I feel like I need to do the right thing and report them in the hopes that we would be removing a bad worker who has a history of meltdowns just like this, who disrupt the workflow and make our department look bad. So would I be the jerk for wanting to report them? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. You have no idea how badly I want to be in your shoes, because I would love nothing more than to not only report Perry, but also hope that Perry finds out that yes, it was me. Because you know what? What you're describing is completely unacceptable. Anyone, and I mean anybody who's gonna storm off and be like, this is too much work, as well as destroying a customer's food on the way out the door from their screaming fit, that person should not be working in the job that they're currently at. And based on Perry's clear history of being a complete spoiled brat, they need to either be fired or they need to quit, because this is not good for anybody who has to work with them. And by the way, Perry's only bringing up the union and saying, ooh, I'm gonna sue for discrimination, simply because they don't want to get fired. They literally are just using that as some kind of out to keep their job and keep the paychecks coming in, despite the fact that Perry doesn't do their job. It is so incredibly unfair for you and your manager to sit there dealing with all these customers while Perry comes in 2 hours late and then runs off after they're like, wow, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too much work. So trust me, if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would happily report Perry. I would tell on them right away, and I would say everything that happened to the T. And if Perry doesn't like it, well then congratulations. They have now lost the trust of another coworker who literally just wants to do their job and get their paycheck, because your job does not include babysitting Perry's feelings. And if they really don't want to do the job that they signed up for, then they absolutely need to go. My girlfriend's sister is very indifferent towards me, and I'm convinced that she straight up just doesn't like me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been together for a few years. I am a very talkative person that enjoys making friends and meeting new people, whereas my girlfriend is more of a homebody, and she is cool with her social standing of being silent and whatnot. I also have a lot of interests that I am passionate about, and I could talk about for hours if needed. Because of my girlfriend's past relationship, her and her sister have grown distant since my girlfriend's ex was a real piece of work and cussed her out and made her cry at some point during their time together. This individual was a horrible person, and I would like to be clear that I am in no way like that. While my girlfriend and I do argue from time to time, I do not come even close to doing what this scumbag did to her. As a result of this, ever since we started dating, her sister has always had some kind of issue with me. I get along better with the building superintendent than I do with her, if that's saying something. I have tried to show her kindness and getting her to open up to me more. My reasoning for this is because I know how much my girlfriend's family means to her, even when she tells me to brush it off and pay no mind to her sister, as they aren't that close and she's fine with it. I know in the past they were super close, and I know my girlfriend is probably just saying that to make me feel better. Her sister and I have spent some time together, but not a lot. I gifted her some things for her birthday, and I spent time at gatherings, and her sister at one of these gatherings, while I was talking about something, laughed with her friend and called me weird. My girlfriend then got mad at me for running my mouth and embarrassing her, which she later took back as we were all inebriated after some drinks. Another time was when we all went out, and one of their cousins got a little bit too drunk, and me, being the worried person that I was, I tried to take care of her and even put my arm around her so she wouldn't fall over, as she was stumbling over her feet. Well, her sister looks at me and smacks my hand away from her and basically tells me to get lost. Now, I in no way intended to do anything other than make sure that they were okay, and I even explained myself the next day. I didn't need to though, as I was basically told that I did nothing wrong and got praised for buying everyone drinks. Ever since then though, it seems like they all just hate me. I don't know if her sister's been running her mouth, calling me weird or whatever, but her cousins have been getting colder, and now when I come over to my girlfriend's house, her sister is really cold. I even try to say hi and she just says nothing to me in return. It's really demoralizing for me because their perception matters, as I am dating my girlfriend and I want my girlfriend to be at peace and happy, and I in no way want to be a divider between her and her family, especially those within our age group, as I know how much they mean to her. I am worried that maybe her sister is influencing everyone and telling them that I am weird or something like that. I really want to just confront her and be like, what is your issue with me? But I know that that won't lead to anything. But I just hate being judged so much. So am I overreacting here? Should I say something or should I just let this go? What should I do? Okay, personally, I don't think you're overreacting because it really does sound like your girlfriend's sister just doesn't like you. But on that same note, it doesn't really seem like you've done anything wrong. Like seriously, you've gone out of your way to be kind to her and at least show her that you're nothing like your girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. You've never cussed her out and you would never make her cry. So it all just seems super petty and just completely unnecessary. And if anything, the story just kind of shows that yeah, sometimes people are just not gonna like you. It doesn't matter if you're the best person in the world and you do everything right, there's always gonna be someone who just doesn't like you, and that's honestly not your problem. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would not let this bother me in the slightest. You know for a fact you've done nothing wrong to your girlfriend's sister, and if she seriously just doesn't like you or has some kind of indifference towards you, then in my opinion, I think you should just let her feel the way that she feels and move on by continuing to care about your girlfriend. Because at the end of the day, that's the one thing that truly matters. this. Would I be the jerk if I skipped out on my brother's wedding after he and his fiancée scheduled their wedding on the exact same day as my wedding? Because right now, my extended family is calling me inconsiderate for not rescheduling my wedding, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I've been with my fiancée for 4 years. About 6 months ago, I proposed to her, and we started planning our wedding. Our families were very happy, since we've been family friends since childhood, and they thought that we were perfect for each other. My fiancée and I both have younger siblings with autism, and it's even something that we bonded over. She has a 22-year-old sister, and I have a 23-year-old brother. They both understand each other well, and have always been friends, and a while after we started dating, they did as well. Our families were happy that they had started dating because they understand each other. Fast forward to today, where they had planned a dinner for both of our families and said that they had a special announcement. It turns out they want to get married on the exact same day as our wedding. My fiancé then asked what they meant by that, and the two of them got extremely angry. My brother said that it wasn't a big deal and that my fiancé and I could just have our wedding on a different date. But we said that we've already spent about $50,000 on this and we couldn't just reschedule it just because they wanted us to. Our families then started saying that we were wrong and that they deserve to be happy as well. My fiancé said that she knows that, but why do they have to do this on the same day as us? They insisted that that is the way that it had to be done. My mother suggested that we could still attend both weddings if they were done at different times, but my brother and fiancé's sister said they wanted it to be their special day and that they would not share it with us. My fiancé then said that if they were doing that, then we would just not attend the wedding. Our families then started to argue with us and said that we were jerks if we did that and that we had to be more considerate because of their autism. Well, my fiancé and I were tired of it and we stormed out, and we got several messages from several family members calling us jerks. My fiancé and I now don't even know what to do. I mean, should we still have our wedding with just our friends? Should we attend their wedding and just forgive them? What should we do? Okay, this is entirely crazy and there is no good excuse for this. For starters, anyone trying to be like, oh yeah, you gotta be more considerate because of their autism. I'm sorry, but that has nothing to do with this. They're being selfish and incredibly inconsiderate, and them having autism has nothing to do with this situation in the slightest. That is a massive cop-out, and it's your family's way of basically absolving them of any responsibility. But if they really are that irresponsible, and they really can't find another day that they can get married, besides the one day that you guys are getting married and spent $50,000 on it, then in my opinion, they are definitely not responsible enough to get married in the first place. Like, it is insane to me that those two would be like, this is our special day, and you need to reschedule it and come to our wedding instead of having your own. Like, I don't know about you, but if someone seriously said I needed to reschedule my wedding that I already spent $50,000 prepping for, I would in that moment lose my mind on them. And I would happily tell them that no, I'm not going to go to your wedding, and I really hope you don't come to mine because what you're doing is insane. So no, you are not the jerk for skipping out on their stupid wedding, and if I was in your shoes, I would still be having that wedding with just my friends. If that were me, I would be uninviting every single family member who took their side, because there is legitimately no rational argument to defend this, and anyone who is trying to defend it, in my opinion, is a massive snake, and that is not someone that I personally would ever want to associate with. I am constantly expected to help out in service, but I'm not getting paid properly for my help, making it so I'm practically working for free. And right now, I'm so frustrated by this that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm currently working in the cocktail bar in a pretty large restaurant. When I signed on, the manager explained to me that despite there being tables directly at the bar, we do not have our own tables at all. We are purely supposed to produce and maybe hand drinks over to the people sitting right at the bar. We do not have access to the point of sale system, we cannot take orders, and we cannot cash people out. And this is in exchange for us having no customer contact, as the tip out is not very large. Now, for reference, I don't work in the United States or Canada, but our tip out averages out to about 25% of our hourly rate. Servers make roughly the same hourly, but even the servers that just aren't doing a good job are easily at least doubling their hourly with tips alone. Now, fair enough, at least we don't have to deal with customers, except our front of house managers love sending waiters home early, only to then have us place people at tables, run drinks and food ourselves, clean tables, roll silverware, and if it becomes really dire, take orders by memory and then pass them along to a waiter. And at this point, it's really starting to frustrate me. It seems like the schedule is set up to not overload the servers while still letting them rake in their money. But in contrast, we're scheduled as tightly as possible behind the bar and then still regularly expected to help out. What's worse worse is the tip out is capped out at a sales point that the larger sections hit pretty much every single day. So if other servers are sent home early, we help out for literally zero benefit because we don't even get the tip out anymore. I mean, I've had days where I've placed a table, took their drink orders at the same time, made their drinks and then ran them out, and then sent them a waiter to order food for them, only for me to run their food, take their dessert order, run the dessert itself, and then send a waiter out to pay for them. And out of all that work, I saw maybe about 20 cents of that based on the tip out alone, while the server maybe gets a $10 tip. Now, this is the extreme, to be frank, but it shouldn't be happening at all. I mainly took this job over others where I could have made a lot more money because it's the easiest stepping stone back into management. And I've already gotten promoted, and I'm slated to take over the bar entirely, but I'm literally halfway out the door again because of all of this garbage. What should I do? Yeah, if that were me, I would definitely be looking for another job because these people sound absolutely awful. They're literally just getting free labor out of you, and it sounds like they're doing this because you're not making a fuss over it. That's why they're sending servers home early, because they know that you and everybody who works at the cocktail bar are basically going to take care of all of this free of charge. Like, why would they keep servers around when they can have you working for free? So if you did want to stick around at that job, I really think that you need to start standing up for yourself because they are clearly taking advantage of you, and every day that you say nothing is just another day that they will continue to do it. My boyfriend told his friend something that I told him in private, and now I'm completely embarrassed and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So recently, my boyfriend and his good friend have been integrating a new guy friend into their circle. They hung out with him a small handful of times and eventually invited me out one night to meet him. Now, I didn't get a good first impression as the guy was really rude to me. He was not engaging in conversation with me. He was not looking at me or in my eye at all. And for the record, he was making eye contact with other people and looking at them, but it was only me that he wasn't doing that to. He was also answering questions aggressively when I tried to engage with him and generally acting as if I had already did something to annoy him. Afterwards, I told my boyfriend all of this and my opinion of him, which was that he didn't give me a good first impression, and he was too aggressive with me, but maybe I just caught him on a weird night or something like that. Now, fast forward, and he went out with the same group, including the new guy, and he did this a couple of weeks later. My boyfriend then revealed that he told his good friend what I said about the new guy, and his friend relayed the info to the new guy. He also said before I got there that the new guy switched seats so he wouldn't have to sit next to me, and made a comment about not wanting to frustrate me. And at this point, I'm upset with my boyfriend for telling his friend what I said about the new guy. I feel as if it was a breach of confidence, considering I told him this opinion in private. Now, I feel like they all think I'm some uptight girlfriend who gets frustrated easily and doesn't like anyone. But also, just the feeling of them all talking about me and my opinion that I said to my own boyfriend in private just leaves me feeling super gross. My boyfriend was acting so nonchalant about it too, by the way, and I had to address the fact that he was so chill about all of it, and he isn't even sorry, nor has he even apologized to me. He then said sorry and later also said that he knew he was going to receive some kind of garbage over all of this. Now, eventually I let it go, but now I feel weird about it. I understand that friends talk to each other, so was this something that my boyfriend should have kept to himself, or was it normal to tell his friends what I said about the new guy? What should I do? Yeah, I can really understand where you're coming from, because this is something you told your boyfriend in private. You didn't want everybody and their mother to know about it. That really is a massive breach of trust, and I would feel the exact same way that you do. You obviously wanted that private, and he violated that privacy. So no, I don't think you're overreacting, because what your boyfriend did, in my opinion, is incredibly messed up. My boyfriend's narcissistic stepmom has completely stolen and confiscated every baby shower gift that was supposed to go to our unborn child, and now we are both at a loss and we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I had only been dating about 2 months when we got the positive test. We have now been dating about 9 months, and he's made it clear that he never wanted kids and has been struggling with prenatal anxiety, but has made it clear that he would like to be involved in my baby's life. As two 20-something-year-olds and as first-time parents, these baby showers that we're gonna have will help us both financially to make things work the best we can. It's been a really hard pregnancy, and it's just getting more difficult to work full-time as I get further along. We had previously considered living together upon knowing the circumstances, but for financial and personal reasons, our daughter will be staying full-time with me at my parents' house, which ended up being our only option for the time being. My due date is August 1st, and his lease for his apartment with his current roommates ends on December 1st. It's also important to know that he has 2 sets of parents, a stepmom and a biological father that live together, and a biological biological mother and a stepdad, and there was a baby shower hosted on June 1st. My boyfriend's stepmom, let's call her Jay for the sake of the story, is married to his biological father. This baby shower was mostly for this side of the family, people like his aunts or uncles, his cousins, grandparents, and his great-grandparents. And from that baby shower, we received so many wonderful gifts, and it really was such a lovely experience. But something strange happened at the end of the shower. Jay and his biological mother started to move in a hurry by putting the gifts away in her closet. I was really confused when I saw this, and when me and my boyfriend had discussed what we were going to do with the gifts after the party, we both agreed that we would put as many gifts as possible in his car just to not make it weird for his relatives, and any bigger gifts would go in my parents' SUV. The whole thing just seemed really weird to me, and the people that were still there sat in silence as they shuffled all the gifts away. I felt so small and like I couldn't do anything. I was in his parents' house surrounded by his relatives. My boyfriend said he thought she was just moving them out of the way when I asked about it. And this seemed weird to me also. Why were the gifts just not brought to the cars? Jay came up to me when she was about halfway done putting the gifts away and told me, "Don't worry, I'm just putting the gifts away so I can make returns on the duplicates or even make exchanges and write thank yous on your behalf." And then she went back to quickly stashing away the gifts. Now, here's the thing. I received no duplicates at this shower except for 2 swings, but even then, why do I not get to pick which swing out of the 2? Now, this is where we both made a mistake. With us both being equally confused and tired from the festivities, we left with no gifts. And his family was acting in the same way that you would expect anyone would act towards a 22-year-old's baby shower. We get littered with comments such as, "Get ready for your life to end," or them saying, "Oh, say goodbye to your free time." It's pretty much the usual hassle that people receive from relatives regardless of your age, which made things so much worse, especially with his anxiety around being a first-time dad. I found out later that she had decided that she would keep the gifts at her house without talking to me or my boyfriend first. She chose to put them in her closet without even letting one of us know that's what she planned to do. I then got a text message from Jay about a week later telling me that she had gotten everything split up between us, and I just got more confused. Do they not know that she will be living with me full time? Well, it turns out Jay didn't agree with our living situation and told my boyfriend that she was scared that I would just rush off with the gifts as well as keep his daughter away from him. His stepmom and dad wanted to make sure that he had something after trying time and time again to explain our situation to them, and that if we were to move out together, it would be in December or later. He works full time, but he hasn't worked at his current job long enough to qualify for paternity leave, meaning that I will be with her full time on my maternity leave, both night and day. And he wants to see her every time that he can, both after work and on the weekends. And right now, with our combined incomes, we just can't afford to move in together. When Jay had sent her son to drop off the baby shower gifts, I immediately noticed that there were 2 big ticket items missing, a swing as well as a pack and play. I planned on returning one of the swings and buying a car seat or a crib, and both gifts were about $400. After noticing this, I got really suspicious. It made me question what else did she possibly take from us. Jay had her daughter make a detailed thank you list with every gift given, which I used as a checklist for every item given to me. But here's the thing, the stepmom had taken and withheld about 2/3 of the gifts. Every time he tries to speak with his family about this, and trust me, I would never say a word to them as they are his family, they gave him another excuse. They say something like, "We were scared her family was gonna run off with the gifts." But it's like, where am I gonna run off to? My family's house? You know, the same place she's gonna be staying full time? They also said to us, "We wanted to make sure that you had something. It just seems like she's running off with a bunch of free stuff and abandoning you." Or my personal favorite one where they said, "Why is your girlfriend being so materialistic? It is so obvious that she plans to leave." I've gone out of my way to build good relationships with his entire family, and it hurts to know that this is what they really think of me. I think the funniest part about all of it is the fact that he specifically said he didn't want anything from the showers baby-wise except for a car seat of some kind. It's like his family expects me to withhold the gifts from him, or like we aren't 2 adults that can make decisions for our own child. They're not just keeping the gifts from me, the girl their son knocked up, but they are actively breaking my trust as a mother of their unborn grandchild. Now, when it comes to the handful of items that were confiscated gifts, they include the following. She took the lactation pads, breast milk storage bags, and the newborn diapers, meaning that all of the ones that I received were completely taken from me. She also took the cards and return receipts, including the gift cards, the bottles, and the newborn onesies. She even took a breast pump from me because she was splitting things up between the 2 of us. I feel sick knowing that she kept literal diapers from us and items only I would ever use. Regardless of our living situation, Jay made me me feel like every gift given to us was very conditional, like it had to be earned or begged for until she got her way. It felt like a toddler throwing a fit that things weren't exactly the way that she wanted them. I've thought through every possible reason why someone would do what she did. Is it because Jay's daughter just found out that she's pregnant? Is she keeping the gifts for her daughter specifically? Is it about the money when she is already so well off? Is it some kind of attempt to control the both of us? Or does she really think she's doing the right thing? On some level or another, I understand some random girl he knocked up won't have the same level of trust that her stepson has. But why does she get to choose what's the right thing for him to do? I understand it looks weird that she is living with me full time for the time being, but we literally have no other choice. It's not like his parents are offering him a spare bedroom. They don't want to make solutions to the living space. They just want to control it. I can't afford anything better. It makes me feel like a horrible person already, that I can't give my daughter a better life, and all their judgment just made me feel so much worse. I'm trying my best to make the circumstances work. I love my daughter and I want her to have everything she needs to the best of my ability. At the end of the day, I just don't understand that even if she was splitting things up between us, why were breast milk storage bags and lactation pads taken from me? Why did I not get to keep the nice onesies with the zippers or get to pick out which swing that I wanted? Why does Jay get to pick and choose what we each need for a child? Why don't I get to own the breast pump? I am going to be the one using it after all. This entire situation just made me feel so small. It feels like I can't do anything at all. I feel so frustrated, and I feel like this is the worst way to manipulate someone, by withholding non-conditional gifts from a literal unborn child. I have another baby shower coming up from his other side of the family, namely his biological mother and his stepdad, and knowing that his biological mom helped his stepmom bring the gifts into her closet and helped to withhold them from us, I'm just honestly so anxious over the whole scenario. If they really are trying to control both of our lives now and the lives of our unborn child, what about when my daughter is actually here? My entire pregnancy, they have told me horrible things, saying stuff like, you need to stop taking your parents' money and sign up for government daycare. Or they'd say to me, you're making it so much more difficult for each other by not moving in together. And also, of course, all the usual unwanted pregnancy advice and the comments about different things. Usually, the first thing people ask me is whether or not I'm planning on breastfeeding. I mean, even strangers are asking me this. And the random belly rubs from absolute strangers is even worse. Now, my boyfriend feels completely indifferent to the situation. On one hand, he understands why they did it and he isn't angry. But on the other hand, he realizes this is them being controlling towards us and is literally telling us exactly how they will be when she is here. Regardless if it's in his best interest, he shouldn't have decisions made on his behalf by his parents as a moved out adult, especially without even a heads up. I do have 3 more baby showers, one with the other side of his extended family, one with my side of the family, and one with my friends and coworkers. He tells me not to worry because I have 3 more showers to go, but what I keep trying to tell him is that I just can't rely on those people to buy everything that we need. What if we needed the extra money from returns to buy something super essential? I don't even have a crib, a car seat, a dresser, or a changing table topper. And now I don't even have diapers. I cannot possibly depend on 3 or more people to spend upwards of $100 reasonably. These might be the only big gifts we receive that we could return for something else that we need more. He's told me that growing up, they made him feel like he was just there and that he didn't have a good relationship with his stepmom for a long time over how controlling she was growing up. It makes me sad that she made a little kid feel like he wasn't as valued as her biological children. Even when he became older, she did this, like paying the full amount for her biological children to go on vacations or just to go to Disney, but if he wanted to go, it became conditional. He had to pay for the plane ticket if he wanted to go to California beaches, while her biological children got a full ride. I'm scared Jay is going to do this again to my daughter now that her biological family member is carrying a grandchild too. It is such a complicated situation and I'm so lost in what to do. Every answer makes me feel materialistic or selfish for wanting these gifts, but I wouldn't be able to afford them otherwise. Obviously, if he wanted to, the gifts from his family he is more than welcome to keep, but they were supposed to be for the both of us and for our unborn child. It feels like I'm going through a divorce trying to split our assets. Why did his family have to make it so weird for me? What should I do? Wow, this is a crazy circumstance to be stuck in. For starters, your boyfriend has no spine. Why on earth is he not making a bigger deal out of this? Why is he sitting there and being like, oh, it's okay, whatever. I can understand why they're doing it, so I'm not completely mad. Like, no, I would be furious. I would be kicking the door in from their house and being like, give me the gifts right now. I would tell them, you have until the end of the day to get me those gifts, or else I'm gonna call the police and start start a report, because what they're doing is literally stealing. They're stealing all the things that they gave you, and they're trying to be like, oh, we'll take care of it in the meantime. It's like, no, you're not. You're going to give it to me, or else the police are going to be involved. And sure, you know what? I can understand where you're coming from, where you're saying, okay, this is my boyfriend's family, it's not my family, so I don't really have a place to say anything or try to make a fuss about it. But if your boyfriend's not going to do it, then in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be making a big deal out of this. You both are in a financially tight situation. You can't even live together at the moment because the lease on your apartments are just not lining up. So to have these baby showers as some kind of relief for the baby that is literally on the way, only for your boyfriend's mom and stepmom to literally step in and take things from you and your boyfriend, like that is absolutely unacceptable. And it's time for somebody to step up and say, no, you need to give us those gifts right now. They're not going to manage it for you. They're not going to handle any kind of thank you cards or anything like that. They're not going to return any duplicates because they have no right to do so. They're going to hand over everything that they're supposed to give you, and then they're going to walk away calmly and mind their own business. Because the comments about them basically implying that you're going to run off with all these gifts and abandon the boyfriend, or them even saying, oh yeah, you're just never going to let our son see his daughter. Like that, in my opinion, is a clear view into how these people really are. And I'm a firm believer that if someone shows you exactly how they are and exactly how they feel about you, then you should believe them. You should believe that they are telling the truth and that this is actually the way that they see you. Because seriously, this is all completely inappropriate. They cannot, under any circumstances, take these baby shower gifts from you and try to lord it over you as if they have a say on where it does and does not go. Because at the end of the day, that's between you and your boyfriend, and neither your stepmom or his biological mother has any right to take anything from you that's going to your baby. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to ask my partner if he'll drive my friend to work when I go on maternity leave? Because right now, my friend is acting super entitled and really trying to guilt trip me hard. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm currently 7 months pregnant, and I give my friend a ride to work. I've been doing this the last year because they live 3 minutes away from me when I was in my old apartment, and I continue to do the favor when I moved in with my partner. I'm going on maternity leave next month, and my friend has no idea how she is going to get to and from work. She's been trying to figure it out since I found out I was pregnant, but she cannot drive. There are no driving schools nearby, and the closest one is 2 hours away, and they have no family to help them do it. I said I wish I could help more, but giving her rides while on maternity leave, but driving with a newborn at 6 in the morning just isn't happening. Well, today she suggested that I ask my partner if he would drive her, and I said no, I'm not asking. We have to be at work at 6:30, and my partner had to be at work at 7:30, and we live about 10 to 15 minutes away from my friend, and our job is 20 minutes away from his job, and I'm not making my partner wake up earlier than he normally does just to get ready for work and drive my friend to work, all because she can't find a ride. She then made a joke saying that he should do this because it's his fault that I have to go out of work because he got me pregnant, and as a friend, she would appreciate the favor. I said I wish we could help, but I'm just not asking him. Well, she is now upset with me because I won't even ask, but I already know that my partner will say yes because he has people-pleasing tendencies, so I'm just trying to make the decision for him. She then brought up how she would not have even taken the job that I helped her get if she knew that we would not be able to carpool anymore. She figured it out when I couldn't give her rides due to illness or appointments, but now I feel like she's just guilt-tripping me and keeps insisting that I just ask and refuses to drop this subject. So am I the jerk for refusing to involve my partner in this entire mess? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. I'm honestly kind of disgusted by your friend because they're seriously just trying to guilt trip you into doing exactly what they want. They don't care about you or your fiance or your baby. They don't care about anything going on in your life. They only care about getting a free ride to work, and they're willing to guilt trip you and disrupt your entire life just to get exactly what they want. And you just know that the only reason they're asking you to ask your partner is because they probably know that they're a people pleaser as well. So they're thinking to themselves, oh, I can get him to do this. He'll drive me to work and that'll solve all my problems. Like seriously, this kind of arrangement is obnoxious, and I can understand carpooling for work, but at this point, there's such a weird sense of entitlement that it really makes me question if this friendship is even that deep in the first place. Like, are you guys actually friends? Or does she just see you as like a free ride of some kind? Because based on what you're describing, I'm willing to bet that it's the second one, and that honestly is so tragic. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for saying, no, I'm not going to ask my partner to drive you to work. That really sounds obnoxious, and in my opinion, you should not be forced to drive this friend, especially with the fact that you're going to have a baby very soon. An entitled old jerk refuses emergency medical service all because I was wearing a mask, and this was clearly an insult to his delicate sensibilities. But after trying and failing to talk to this man, as well as trying to convince him to let us help him with his medical emergency, he refused our help unless we took our mask off. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's weird behavior, and I hope I never deal with anyone like that ever again. Here's what happened. So I'm a firefighter and a paramedic for a small suburban department, and our particular community has a lot of retired elderly people, and many of whom begin to experience medical problems at an exponential rate as they get older. Last shift, we get a call to a home for difficult breathing, and most notably, as we pulled up, was a yard that had signs of their favorite political candidate, as well as an American flag flying upside down from a flagpole, and most ironically, a sign depicting bullet holes, boldly proclaiming that this house doesn't call 911. Our mere presence at that house proved that was in fact very false. I mean, I can't imagine how the Second Amendment didn't resolve his respiratory distress, and he had to resort to calling the exact number his sign states that he does in fact not call, but I digress. So you can imagine this person's politics and personality, which to some of these entitled old people seems to become one and the same. I happen to not share his views, but a patient is a patient, and I treat everyone courteously across the board unless they give me a reason not to. Ever since COVID-19, I've worn an N95 mask on every single medical call. Our department no longer requires us to do so, but I choose to because I like not getting sick, and I also like not bringing home patients' infectious illnesses to my wife and toddler, and I credit this with having not caught COVID once since it all started. Anyways, we entered the house and I called out fire department, which he answered by saying, "I'm in the back bedroom." I follow the voice to a bedroom where I find a 350-pound man literally sprawled out on his bed. He's audibly wheezing and coughing and looking pale and incredibly sweaty. And in EMS terms, we call this looking like garbage. So yeah, this dude needs some intervention. But before I even set my gear down and start my assessment, he says to me, "Get that effing thing off your face." Now, I definitely wasn't expecting that to be our initial reaction, so I asked him and I said, "Pardon?" He said to me, "You heard me. Take off that effing mask." So I think to myself, okay, cool. To this guy, it's more important to rage about personal protection equipment that I'm wearing than to tell me what he called for or to just let me treat him. I try to brush it off with an explanation about how this is what I wear for every medical call, but he raises his voice at me and he says to me, "Don't you effing touch me wearing that thing. Masks don't work. And the guy who said we should wear them is a traitor and needs to be punished." Now, trying to look past what he just said, I asked him if he wants help or not, at which point we reach the stage where he pretends not to be able to understand me because the mask allegedly muffles my voice. I have a deep voice, and I have been projecting it for hard of hearing old people my entire career. And it was also fairly telling that when I told him, "Sir, you can hear me just fine." And his response was to say, "No, I effing can't." Eventually, he demanded that someone else on my crew help him out because he was sick of my BS. So I said to him, "Okay, sir, you got it." I called my partner and my captain into the room and said that he would rather speak to them. So they enter the room, but surprise, surprise, they're wearing a mask as well because this house reeks of stale smoke and body odor, and this patient is constantly coughing. So he sees two new people also wearing a mask in his room, and then this guy absolutely goes into a rage. He's telling us to get out, that we're all useless, while also saying some of the worst slurs I've ever heard in my life. I asked him if he would be willing to sign a document called an Against Medical Advice, which releases us from liability when a patient refuses medical care. His answer was to say, "Screw that. I can't hear you with that stupid cloth on your face." So I think to myself, yeah, okay buddy, whatever you say. We then grabbed our gear and we filed out. His clearly long-suffering wife caught us at the door and begged us to go back in and take him to the hospital as he's been having so much trouble breathing lately. Now, he sure has, but he's also an adult, at least on paper, and he makes his own medical decisions, so legally our hands are tied. I felt a little bit bad for her until she said something to me that honestly blew my mind. She said, "You don't need to wear a mask anyways. Just take it off for his sake so he'll let you help him." My answer to her was, "Sorry ma'am, my body, my choice. Call us back when he goes unconscious or stops breathing." Well, sure enough, she called back at 4 in the morning and he was knocking on death's door. But this time, he was too messed up to even know that we were in the room, and I ended up having to intubate him and breathe for him mechanically on the way to the hospital. Last I heard, he's going to make it, but I sincerely doubt any lessons were learned along the way. Wow, this guy's an idiot. Like seriously, who in their right mind would be like, "Ooh, ooh, I'm having trouble breathing, but I can't possibly get this help if you don't take off that mask. Like if I'm actually having a medical emergency, I don't care if the ambulance is wearing a clown costume. I absolutely want them to come in and try and help me out. So honestly, the way this guy acted was incredibly inappropriate, and I don't blame the original poster for walking away and teaching this guy a valuable lesson. My entitled father, in a fit of rage, canceled all of our hotel reservations at the last minute after most of the family came into town for my aunt's wedding, while also expecting all of us to sleep on the floor, despite never providing blankets, mattresses, or sleeping bags of any kind. And I'm honestly so blown away by my father's entitlement that I have now decided that I will never trust my father with anything ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was only a few years ago, but this is literally the most jerk thing that my entitled father has ever done. So my aunt, my father's younger sister, was getting married a few years ago. She lives in a major metro area and was getting married downtown. My father generously offered me, myself, my grandmother, and my brother separate hotel rooms to house us and our respective spouses within walking distance to the venue. No renting a car, no stress. It would be an easy in and out once we arrived in the city. We would just have to get ourselves there and he would take care of the rest. I want to point out that my dad is financially secure and none of this would have put him in dire straits. My brother and his wife flew in and I was going to fly, but I live within a day's driving distance of my aunt. And while initially I was going to fly, at the last minute something made me change my mind. I told my dad I was going to drive and he said to me, "What in the world are you doing that for?" But honestly, I wanted to have access to a car, and I guess as a safety measure, I threw in the trunk a sleeping mat, a blanket, and a pillow. And I guess I just had a feeling that things were gonna go bad. So me, my dad, and my brother and his wife are meeting my dad at my grandmother's house when all of us get into town, which is a full 25 miles away from where my aunt is getting married in a few days. No one has rented a car and my grandmother doesn't drive. So my car is the only car that we all have, but it's totally fine. We're all moving to the hotel soon, right? Well, I couldn't be more wrong. My father calls the hotel to ask about parking since I have the car that he insisted we didn't need, and the hotel informs him that you need to pay if you want to park. Well, my entitled father finds this to be the last straw, even though this was the only straw. All our plans are coordinated, but for some reason, upon hearing that the parking isn't free, he proceeds to cancel all of our hotel reservations. And he does this just like that on the spot. And this is all because of the cost of parking, which is something I would have happily paid for, but no, instead he cancels everything. I was taken back at this, and I asked where he expected everybody to sleep. My father then pointed to the floor. "You, your brother, and your brother's wife can sleep right there." Now, I need to point out that my grandmother lives alone, and my dad was in the guest room. Other than that, she has no accommodation, she has no extra pillows, bedding, or anything like that. The living room had a chair and a table. I mean, her house only had 2 rooms. None of us are kids anymore, and we would all just literally be sleeping on the floor. And this is all after being promised that we would be taken care of. My dad is a massive jerk in general, so a part of me was not surprised by this at all. And I think that's why in the back of my mind, I drove and brought supplies with me. So now we had to scramble. I ended up driving my father to the car rental place because now we had to cart everybody around, and I spent 3 days hauling everybody about. My brother and his wife were also lucky to buy their own reservations at another hotel nearby, so I carted them around to and fro, and my father and I drove everybody to the rehearsal dinner, the wedding, the reception, and the breakfast on Sunday for opening the gifts. I ended up being the only one sleeping on the floor in the living room, but I took it in stride while making a mental note to never trust my father ever again. He's not really a great guy, but for some reason this was like the worst thing he's ever done. And I guess this is because he basically said, "I have everything taken care of, just show up." But then he turns around and makes everybody scramble for everything at the last minute. And I'm honestly so sickened by his behavior, and I really hope I never deal with this kind of treatment ever again. Wow, your dad is a massive jerk, and he seems like the most sensitive man on planet Earth. You mean to tell me that he canceled all of your hotel reservations, all because you brought your own car to this wedding event? Like seriously, there's no reason for that. In fact, the only reason I can think of is because he wanted to have full control over you and your siblings the entire time. He wanted you to be completely reliant on him, so he could basically like lord over you the entire time. Like that is insane behavior in my opinion, and the fact that he did that under the guise of, "Oh, this is gonna be easy for you guys. There's gonna be no stress and it's gonna be so simple." Like that alone is really misleading, and clearly you can see his intentions were completely the opposite. Because just imagine if you did something he didn't like, and then he not only canceled your hotel reservations, but also he refused to get you where you needed to go in his car. So yeah, your dad's a massive jerk for what he did because he overreacted big time, and you and your family did not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled old jerk blocks my car from leaving my parking spot, all because he was so obsessed about the tiny car that I drive. But after I nearly sprayed that guy in the face with bear spray, this entitled old jerk finally gets the picture and runs off. And I'm honestly still shaken up, and I seriously hope I never deal with anyone like that ever again. Here's what happened. So I drive a small electric car. It's fully paid for, it gets me from point A to point B, and it's honestly just right for me. I went grocery shopping, and when I was leaving, this entitled old man yells out and says to me, "Watch out in that tiny car." Now, when he said that, I completely ignored him, and I just kept packing my groceries. I then hear footsteps and a closer, loud voice screaming from behind me. He says again, "You need to watch out in that tiny car." And once again, I just completely ignore him. My car is parked ahead, and he's not in a car. I mean, nobody's driving anything. I just want to get home and make some breakfast. So I get in my car, and when I look up, I see the entitled old man in his car quite literally beginning to pull in behind my car. At this point, he is idling and hanging out the window, yelling at me that once again, I need to watch out in that tiny car. But just like before, I just ignored him. He then steps out of his car, which was still parked right behind me, by the way, and walked over to the window. Now, at this point, I open my glove box and I grab my can of bear spray. The entitled old man gets out of his car, starts walking towards the driver's side window, and says to me, "Can't you hear me? Watch out in your tiny car. Why are you driving a car so small?" I then point the can at him through the window, and I scream, "Back off and get away from me." When I said this, he didn't move. So I hit the panic alarm on my key. By now, there's a few other shoppers staring at the situation, but not really doing anything to intervene. But regardless, I felt somewhat safer knowing other people were seeing this go down. The entitled old man finally gets the hint and gets back in his car. He then yells at me, "I was just trying to help out," and then he speeds off into the distance. I'm still rattled and extremely pissed off. I should have just sprayed that idiot without saying anything. The guy was in his 70s and thought that planting his car in order to block me from exiting a parking spot was somehow going to be helpful to me. But for some old entitled jerk, him saying that he just wanted to help looks and feels incredibly sketchy, and I really hope I never deal with anyone in this manner ever again. Yeah, it really seemed like that old man was really just asking to get sprayed in the face with bear mace. What in the world was he thinking, walking up to somebody like that and being like, "Oh, not only am I going to block you from leaving, but I'm also going to approach your window and scream these crazy delusional things." It's like, yeah, I'm aware. I know that I have a tiny car. It's not that big of a deal. He doesn't have to literally follow you into the parking lot, block your exit with his car, and then start pestering you through your window. So truly, that guy was out of his mind, and he absolutely deserved to get sprayed in the face, especially if he's going to be bothering you in that kind of way. Am I the jerk for taking away my brother's +1 invite to my wedding after he tries to bring along somebody who's incredibly toxic and a person who always makes a scene no matter what she does? Because right now he is very upset with me, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that I know I am the jerk, but I need to know how bad it was. My brother is 29 years old, and he has been with someone who we will call Leah for about 2 years. Leah is not her real name, and for the record, we like Leah a lot. She is super nice. I am getting married next April, and I sent an invite to my brother's apartment. We decided to send invites to households and not individuals. For example, our aunt received an invite for her family and not for each individual. Last Thursday, we met at my parents' place, and it was just the core family members there. While we were there, I asked my brother about Leah's dietary restrictions. I know that she is vegetarian for health reasons, and that she cannot have certain raw vegetables. He said that she wasn't going to come, and that he was taking his girl best friend Amanda instead. Amanda is also not her real name. Now, their relationship is very weird. Amanda has always been stringing my brother along, in my opinion, and he always denies having feelings for her, but honestly, I think he's completely full of it. Amanda would date other guys, blow off my brother, then when things were on the decline with her partners, she would be attached to him once again. Her last boyfriend broke up with her right around the time my brother, his then ex-girlfriend, Amanda, and her ex were supposed to travel to Spain. So what did my idiot brother do? He went with Amanda alone because Amanda was uncomfortable with his ex-girlfriend. And obviously, he acted blindsided when his girlfriend broke up with him. I didn't even say anything anymore because it's all just so weird. So when he said that, I asked if Leah already had other plans, but my brother said that Amanda had asked if she could come because it would be an opportunity to finally see the old gang, as we were in the same friend group in high school. Well, I told him that I would have invited Amanda if I wanted her there. But here's the thing, Amanda is mean and cold. She always makes disparaging comments about other girls, and at every event around 1 hour in, she will make some sort of scene that either has her running away crying or sitting mad at a table, telling everyone to leave her alone, and then make a cryptic comment about something hurting her. Well, as a result, I told my brother I was revoking his +1 and that Amanda was not coming to our wedding. He then accused me of being misogynistic, all because I don't understand opposite gender friendships, which is just total BS. My husband has a female childhood friend who is his best woman. I love her too, and she has been amazing, and she respects boundaries. She always includes me and made a huge effort when I started dating my fiance to integrate me into the friend group. Anyways, I said that my decision was final. He could take it or leave it, but I would be inviting Leah myself because I like her. He then screamed at me and told me to keep out of his business, but I said that he needs to get rid of his weird feelings towards Amanda, and at this point, he's very mad at me. So am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? No, to be completely honest, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think your brother's a complete moron for not bringing Leah to your wedding. For starters, I think the main issue here is that you do not want Amanda at your wedding, and that in my opinion is completely reasonable. It makes perfect sense that you would not want her coming along, especially with the way she's acted in the past. And I really feel like this has nothing to do with your brother either. Like even by herself, I feel like Amanda would probably cause some kind of problem at your wedding, and that is not something I would even want to begin to entertain in the slightest. Like seriously, you just want a drama-free wedding, so for him to be like, no, I'm not going to bring my girlfriend that the family likes, I'm going to bring this one girlfriend that I'm denying having feelings for, despite all these other instances of him basically proving that yes, he does still have feelings for her. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for not wanting Amanda at your wedding, because at the end of the day, this is your wedding, and if you don't want her showing up, then that's exactly the way that it's gotta be. An entitled jerk demands that I buy him his cigarettes after I helped a kid pay for his chocolate milk that he couldn't quite afford. And when I told him that I wasn't gonna do that, this guy lost his mind, resulting in him getting denied service and eventually kicked out of my convenience store. Here's what happened. So I used to work at a little convenience store in a very small town. Every customer was a regular. I had this one kid who was about 12 years old, and he came every school day on his bike. He bought a chocolate milk and a thing of cheese crackers every day. The total at the time was $2.08 after tax, and the kid always paid in change, almost like it came straight out of his piggy bank. One day, he came in with this look that said he really had a bad day. He shuffled through the store and grabbed his usual stuff, but was short about 10 cents. He went to put his crackers up, but I pulled a dime out of my pocket. I smiled at him and said that it's all good and that he can enjoy his snack. Well, when I did that, the kid thanked me and he left looking quite a bit happier. The next customer was a regular as well, but he was a man in his 40s wanting his usual pack of cigarettes. I ring him up and I tell him the total, but he smiles and says, "Well, aren't you gonna pay for it?" I tell him no, I'm not gonna do that, but he proceeded to yell at me that if I'm buying customer stuff, then I should have to pay for his cigarettes. At this point, there is a line of customers behind him that saw what had happened with the kid, but I told him that there's a difference between helping a kid who is slightly short for an after-school snack and a full-grown man trying to force a woman to buy his smokes. He then starts yelling at me about favoritism, and I just look at him in the eyes and I say, yeah, so what? He proceeds to yell insults at me before I simply grab his cigarettes and I put them back on the shelf. The guy then says to me, "What are you doing? I'm buying those." I responded by saying, "Not today and not from me. Please leave." He then starts to reach across the counter when I step back away from him. Now, it's important to note that I was about 7 months pregnant at the time, and stepping back revealed my pregnant belly. I'm short, so the counter typically hid this feature. I wasn't doing it to reveal anything, I was just getting out of his reach. At this point, the customers behind him almost started a riot about him attacking a pregnant woman for helping a kid. And right after that, this guy was no longer a regular. He left in a huff, and every customer behind him started an after-school snack fund for that kid. It started with the first guy putting an extra $1 on the counter for the kid, and it just kept going till I set a jar. And as a result, the kid had free chocolate milk for almost a month before I had to go on maternity leave. And I'm honestly just proud that we were still able to help that kid, even though that other jerk tried to make such a big fuss out of it. Wow, that guy's a massive jerk. Who in their right mind would make a big deal about that and try to be like, ooh, if you're gonna pay for that kid's stuff, you gotta pay for mine as well. Like, this guy does know he's a 40-year-old man sitting there being like, buy my cigarettes, do it right now. The original poster literally just gave a dime to help this kid out, and this guy really wants to act like this is the end of the world. Like, seriously, that is such awful behavior, and I really hope that this guy is completely ashamed of himself. Am I the jerk for refusing to go back to my parents' house, all because of my little sister who lives there, and for the way that she's been treating me. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female and I'm in college. And when the semester finished a couple of weeks ago, I had planned to stay with some friends. But my parents told me that they wanted me to come home so bad and that I should spend time with my family. Namely, it would be my parents and my 15-year-old sister. So I went home for summer break, but I really did not want to be there because I feel like my parents spoil my younger sister and I find it so annoying, and her attitude can be really annoying as well. But they are still my family, so I'm trying to do what I need to do. Well, it lasted 3 days when I found out my sister had put a camera in my room. I was so mad, and my sister told me I was being such a drama queen and that there's nothing wrong with getting some footage of me. She seriously tried to claim that it was no different to home movies. My parents were telling me to calm down while I confronted my sister, and they acted like she was a baby who didn't get what she was doing. But she is old enough to know so much better, and she's old enough to be taught at the very least. I ended up deleting all the stuff I found on me and my sister's laptop, and then I went to my friend's place like I had originally planned. My parents thought that I was just gone for the night, but I told them that I wasn't coming back. They gave me a few more days, and when they realized I was serious, they told me I need to come back home sometimes, and in the heat of the anger I'm still feeling, I told them I won't go back in their house as long as my sister still lives with them. Now, what I really should have said and what I do feel is that there's no point for me to go back to them anymore when they value her way more than me, and they don't seem to care about me in the slightest. Because seriously, acting like it was no big deal for what she did is just so incredibly gross. My parents told me that I shouldn't talk that way with my younger sister and that I'm throwing a toddler's temper tantrum instead of responding to all of this like an adult would. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to go back? Because right now I am still so angry with them, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this story really upsets me because this is not okay. I don't care who you are, you cannot secretly record somebody against their will. That is incredibly sketchy, there's no good excuse for that, and honestly, I just cannot believe anybody in their right mind would ever justify that. Your parents are sitting there acting like, wow, you're just so overreacting right now. You're throwing a toddler's temper tantrum, you need to calm down and talk like an adult. And it's like, what are you talking about? Any reasonable adult would be like, oh yeah, your 15-year-old sister is grounded for like a year for doing that. And by the way, this is not the same thing as having a home movie. This is literally your sister violating your privacy and also doing something illegal depending on where you live. Because for example, if you live in the United States like I do, I'm willing to bet in most places that if you record somebody secretly against their will, I'm pretty sure that's illegal and you can get in serious trouble if you pursue that. So for your parents to be like, oh wow, you're just getting so worked up over this, that is crazy in my opinion, and that is not okay. And it really does prove that they spoil their younger sister and they clearly feel that she could do no wrong. So no, you are not the jerk for not going back, because if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would go back there, because any semblance of trust I would have in them is completely shattered, and I just don't think that you should have to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my younger siblings that I'm not their dad and that they need to stop acting like I'm their parent? Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old male, and my parents had me at 19 years old, and I was the only child for 6 years. They then had 3 kids back to back, who are now 16, 15, and 14. My parents were never the most attentive parents, but they did a better job with my younger siblings than they did with me. But at some point, while my siblings were still really young, they started to come to me like I was an adult instead of going to my mom and dad, and they just kind of let it happen. Now, they were still there, but my siblings would ask me to make them food, or they'd ask me for money, even though I didn't have any back then, or they'd want me to help them with homework, or they'd come to me if they're struggling to do their chores. Needless to say, it got annoying very quickly, and I asked my parents to step in so that I wasn't always saying no, or having a sibling throw a temper tantrum, all because I wasn't acting like more of an adult than the parents in the house who were supposed to be there to do stuff for them. My parents were there for the basics, and if my siblings didn't come to me, they would deal with stuff, but otherwise they seemed glad to not have to deal with all of the parenting. But they still were not as good with me as they were with my siblings. It was some things like prioritizing supporting my siblings instead of me, or making a big effort for their birthdays but not mine. Christmas was another time it was super obvious because my siblings got gifts that they wanted, but I would get gifts that I just really needed. Stuff like hygiene products or socks or even underwear. I brought it up to my parents when I was 15 years old, and they used the excuse that they had me at 19, so they just didn't know how to connect with me in the same way, and they didn't have the means to provide for me like they did my siblings. When I learned how to drive and started working, my siblings relying on me got worse. They wanted me to drive them places, give them money, they wanted me to take them to school and pick them up. They would expect me to buy birthday gifts for their friends and take them shopping for that stuff. My youngest sibling even asked me to be a parent chaperone chaperone on a field trip when I was only 16 years old. It was all so suffocating, and my siblings could not be spoken to about it. They just wanted me to be the dad. And in fact, they even called me dad sometimes. I was desperate to get out, and COVID almost completely messed me up, but I was very lucky that my girlfriend's family let me move in with them. Once I left, I tried to better enforce my boundaries and create a distance, but they still wanted me there, and they would cry down the phone about me leaving and not being there for stuff. Now that my siblings are teenagers, I tried to talk to them about it again, but my sister, who's 16 years old, said that I had to do these things because I'm supposed to. I asked her why I was supposed to do anything, and she said because you're basically our dad. And my brothers even agreed with her. Now, I will admit it, this really upset me, and I told them in a firm and angry tone that I am not their dad and they needed to stop acting like I'm the parent of the house, because in reality, I'm their sibling. I'm the oldest for sure, but I'm not their parent and I'm not responsible for them. But they said that I was a jerk and that I should like taking care of them. So I'm honestly so frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. First of all, I don't think you're the jerk at all for telling them exactly what's up and explaining to them that no, you are not their parent. But also, your actual parents are the worst people on planet Earth. How are they not more involved in their kids' lives? They've basically put you in a corner and forced you to be the substitute parent that they never were. And that, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. So no, you are not the jerk, because this is a responsibility that you should have never been responsible for from the beginning. An entitled Karen in Walmart demands that I get off the mobility scooter that I was currently using, claiming that I didn't need it and that I was just faking it so I could ride in the cart. But even though I explained that I had gallbladder surgery and that I desperately needed this cart to get around, she refused to let me sit down. And I'm honestly still blown away by the way this lady acted, and I hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that this happened over a year ago, but I still think about it all the time. So at the time, I was 18 years old, and I had just had surgery to remove my gallbladder. As a side note, the surgery was after 6 months of trying to get into the ER, while also in extreme pain and having to wait over 15 hours each time without seeing a single doctor. Since I was fresh off the operating table, I couldn't walk on my own and needed to use a cane. While I was in a store that had them, I used the mobility scooters. You know, because that's why they have them there in the first place. Me and my husband, we'll call him Henry for the sake of the story, were at Walmart one day and I couldn't keep walking with the cane. It was hurting too much, so I told Henry that I needed to grab a scooter. We make our way through the store with little to no problem, but I noticed this entitled Karen had been following us for quite a while. At one point, I stood up to look at some chips that we were thinking about grabbing when this lady comes screaming around the corner and starts berating me. The entitled Karen looks at me and says, "You're disgusting for taking away a disabled cart. You are not disabled." I look at this Karen and I say, "Ma'am, if you look in the basket, you can see that I have a cane with me. So yes, I am currently disabled and I need the scooter." The Karen then looks at me and says, "Oh please, that's not a real cane. That is a stick." Now the cane was my grandmother's, and she made it from a tree that she loved when it had fallen on a tornado. She used it till the day that she died and passed it on to me. I looked at this entitled Karen and I said, "This is in fact a cane, not just something you would buy from the store. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to find my husband to give him the chips that I want." At this point, I tried to get back on the scooter, but she literally blocked my way. I looked at her and I said, "Ma'am, I need to sit back down. I'm in a lot of pain and I can't stand on my own for very long." This Karen, while still blocking my way, said, "You're fine. You're young and healthy and you don't need a scooter. You're just too lazy to walk." I then say to her, "No, I just had surgery and I can show you the scars if you want me to, but I need to sit down and get to my husband." Eventually, my husband finds me and tells the Karen to move so I can sit down, explaining that I had in fact just had surgery and that I was in excruciating pain. She finally moved out of the way and was a little white in the face, but left us alone after that. But even to this day, I still can't believe that this entitled Karen treated me in the way that she did. Wow, talk about intrusive. This lady not only said, "Oh, you're faking it, you can walk on your own," but she actually tried to block you from getting back on the scooter itself, all because you stood up for like, what, 5 seconds? Here's the thing, if someone's in a mobility scooter, regardless of their age or what they look like, I'm willing to bet that they probably need it, and it's also none of my business either way. And there's a big difference between like a bunch of teenagers going for a joyride and someone who's just literally privately shopping for stuff that they need. Because the way that entitled Karen acted was so out of line, and she had no business trying to stop you in the way that she did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I overreacting by not inviting my brother to my wedding after he confessed that even 10 years later, he doesn't care that he bullied me all through high school and he still doesn't care about me? Because right now, my mom's upset that my brother won't be going, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so as the title basically says, I'm not inviting my younger brother to my wedding because we have a broken relationship, and he has said and done a lot of terrible things to me. In fact, he was my bully in high school. Now, growing up, we were actually very close. We played together a lot. I tried to take care of him when both our parents were away at work during the summer. I would make him lunch as well as several other things to show my affection. He was bullied pretty badly in middle school, and I honestly think that might be what changed him. By high school, he started to have an attitude with me. He was really rude and disrespectful to me, but I brushed it off as just being a phase. That is, until one day a girl at our church approached me. She started laughing at me and told me that my brother had been telling her how stupid I was. This was also the girl he was trying to date, and she was way out of his league, and he was just trying to score points with her by trashing me. I later learned that he had been using me as the butt of his jokes at school and at our church youth group. He was trying to fit in with the cool kids at school and at church, and he was saying horrible derogatory things about me behind my back. Well, I was furious, so I confronted him. At first, he denied it, but under pressure admitted that it was true, and told me he wasn't sorry and he didn't care. I couldn't believe that my own brother had no remorse, had no feelings about any of this, and literally just didn't care about me at all. He then said and did a lot of horrible things after that for about a year. We were both in cross country, and my parents forced me to give him a ride home every single day. One day, the cross country team had a meeting with the coach after practice, and my brother failed to go to the meeting. And I'm pretty sure he either forgot or he just wasn't paying attention. He later found me in the school hallway after the meeting, and he screamed at me for not reminding him about the meeting. And this was all in earshot of other people, even though it was his job to know about it in the first place. My parents, especially my mom, took no actions to punish him in any way. My mom wouldn't even reprimand him or even say anything negative to him. All she would say is, "I love you both." My mom was so scared of losing her son, she chose to just appease to him and never say anything that would ever upset him. So I felt betrayed by my parents too, especially my mom. 10 years have passed and he has still never apologized. I confronted him a few years ago, not for any kind of apology, but I just wanted an explanation. At first, he denied everything and said he didn't remember what happened and said we had a mutual fight. When I pressured him on it, he sort of just admitted what he did, but he told me that he wasn't sorry and he didn't care about me at all, and that I was just a person from his past. He said I was overreacting still, and he says it was stupid that I was angry about things that happened years ago. Nowadays, he doesn't have a good relationship with anyone in our family. He is a mama's boy, and I think his relationship with my mom is very manipulative. He doesn't really express any kindness or love for anyone in the family, except he sort of likes our mom because she still coddles him. Well, I'm now getting married, and I've decided that I'm not going to invite him to my wedding. When my mom found out I wasn't going to invite my brother, she was extremely heartbroken and very upset. She also thinks that I'm overreacting to what he did, and she thinks I should just get over it. I don't want to hurt my mom, but it's not my fault that we have a broken relationship. My brother doesn't even care about me, and he never apologized. I mean, why would I invite him? It still hurts my mom that he isn't invited, and I don't want to hurt her, but there is no way I want to see him at my wedding. So am I the one that's overreacting? What should I do? I do not think you're overreacting at all, because I know if I was in your shoes, there's no way he would ever be at my wedding. This guy was your high school bully, your own sibling going out of his way to make your life miserable. I seriously can't imagine what that would be like, because my siblings were the ones I would go to when I was getting bullied. So for that to happen at school and at home from someone you thought was on your side, that must have been devastating, and I'm so sorry you went through that. Now here's the thing, if he had just had a different tune or like grew up in any kind of way in those past 10 years, then I think there would be some kind of difference in how you decided to go about doing this. Like if I had a sibling who treated me like that, and we had some kind of discussion 10 years later to figure things out, or even get like somewhat of an apology from him in some kind of way, then I'm sure he would have been welcomed into that wedding, no problem. But the fact that even 10 years later, he is still saying that you're the one that overreacted, and that he doesn't care about you, and that he's not sorry, like that is tragic and a complete deal breaker. Like this guy doesn't care about you at all. So in my opinion, I think you did the right thing by cutting him out of your wedding, because this guy sounds super toxic, and if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. I cut my toxic father out of my life and went completely no contact with him after dealing with his awful behavior. And now, after my sister invited me to a family event that he would be at, I am now completely unsure of what to do next, or if I should even show up in the first place. Here's what what happened. Okay, I'm hoping for some advice on how to handle a pretty delicate situation in my family. It's about me, a 34-year-old male, my sister who's 36 years old, and my father who's 65. My parents divorced when I was a kid, so my mother is not directly involved in any of this. To start things out, my father and I haven't had any contact for 6 years whatsoever. To put it briefly, we've always had a very tumultuous and downright antagonistic relationship, and after many years of pain, sorrow, and disappointment, I finally gave up on having a relationship with him at all. One night, in a bit of fury, I told him how I felt about him in no uncertain terms. I told him that I see him as an awful person, that he is a vile, moronic narcissist, and that he means less than nothing to me. And I meant every single word, and I still do. And shortly thereafter, I sent him a massive text message that made it very clear exactly how he has harmed me and how it has affected my life. I then immediately blocked his number as my mind was made up and I just wanted him gone, but this time for good. And I couldn't care less about his response or any further communication. So there is no reconciliation possible, and I'm fine as anyone could be with that. That's not my goal, and I have no remorse or guilt about how it ended, and I've never for a second doubted that it was the right choice for me. When I broke off contact, the hardest part was that I realized that this would make it incredibly difficult to sustain my relationships with members of my extended family on my father's side. Although it pained me greatly, I made that sacrifice willingly, thinking that that would be the end of it. At that point, it was about self-preservation, and I was absolutely ruthless in guaranteeing myself freedom from his influence. Whatever it took, I was willing to do it. But of course, it wasn't going to end just like that, as these things so rarely do. In my case, primarily because of my sister. My sister has historically been chiefly on my side in all of this because she witnessed all the awful treatment that I suffered directly, and she was unable to prevent it despite numerous attempts at diplomacy. She carries a lot of guilt because of this, but at the same time, her and my father were always quite close. My father's awful tendencies also targeted my sister, but in a very different manner, and she is much more of a people-pleaser kind of person than I ever was. Where I was routinely shamed, blamed, and ridiculed, my father made her into a mother figure and a confidant, meaning that she's been his personal therapist ever since her teenage years. She resents him for this, but her feelings are far more murky and ambivalent than mine, and despite her complaining about him and his behavior constantly, even to this day, she hasn't broken off contact with him because she wants her children to have a relationship with their grandfather. Now, to me, that's her choice, and I've never criticized her for that, regardless of how I feel his influence might come to harm my nieces and nephew. My father and I have successfully avoided each other for 6 years, and I think we're both quite terrified of the day that we meet. But as long as we navigate around each other, then honestly, that's not a problem. But unfortunately, a situation did arise. Recently, my sister gave birth to her third child, and the christening is set for August. Where I'm from, it's a big occasion where all family members, both inner and extended, are all invited, along with friends and their significant others and children. And of course, my sister doesn't know what to do about me and our father because we haven't seen or talked to each other in 6 years. She knows exactly how I feel about him and that I don't want to be anywhere near him or ever see him or hear him talk ever again, because in that I have found peace. But my father's unwilling to accept that he will not be invited to the christening, all because I don't want him there. And he's also deeply upset about my sister originally not inviting him. So he's been emotionally pressuring her and blackmailing my sister into inviting him. My sister has said to him that I'm the one who gets to be there if me and my father cannot agree that it is alright for the both of us to be there. She's told him that she thinks that he is supposed to be the mature one and that it is his responsibility to reach out and make amends with me, and that's if he wants to be there for his granddaughter's christening. So he said to her that he would reach out to me, and my sister then texted me to tell me that my father might contact me because they had a conversation. Now, at first, I didn't think he would contact me at all because he generally doesn't follow through on any promises that he makes, and he's a massive coward when it comes to dealing with me, or any conflict for that matter. But to my surprise, I received a text message from him that says the following: "I'm reaching out because your sister has expressed that she wants the three of us, namely him, myself, and his wife, at the christening at the same time, and I was hoping that we could agree to being in the same room for this and future events. We don't have to shake hands or even talk. We just need to behave like adults. Kind regards." Now, never mind that my sister has not expressed that she wants him and his wife at the christening, or how aggressive the tone of this message is. With all that in mind, it has provoked way more emotions in me than I thought possible. I thought I was over it, but there is a lot of anger, and to a lesser degree, also sorrow and anxiety. Emotionally, I regret unblocking his number for this message deeply, since it has left me in quite the state of emotional turmoil. But I also don't know what to do about the situation with the christening at hand. I've narrowed it down to 3 options that I can really think of. Option number 1 is that I can tell my sister what reading his message did to me and that I'm clearly not able to cope with being anywhere near him, seeing as I can't even read a message from him without imploding emotionally. If I did that, that would mean that she would have to choose between the two of us, and I don't want to put her in that position or risk antagonizing her and ruining our relationship. If I go down this path, I'm honestly afraid she'll consider me incredibly cowardly or suspect me of agitating the conflict on purpose, and then decide that I'm the one who won't get invited to the christening. My second option is that I could defy every emotion and instinct that I have, try to man up, and tell my father that we can both go as long as he keeps his distance and avoids talking to me or about me. And I absolutely mean it when I say that I have no way of predicting exactly how I will react if he tries anything. So it could get very, very ugly as it has many times before. I won't know until it happens, but I am definitely at risk of losing my temper and making a scene. Also, I find the idea of being at the christening with that many people around almost like I'm being publicly humiliated because they all know what's going on with him and me, and I feel like I'll be spending the entire day avoiding my father and his wife. And if that happens, what's even the point of being there if I have to be hypervigilant and anxious? I broke off contact with him exactly because I could no longer ignore my feelings or downplay myself just in order to keep the peace. And on that promise to myself, I will not under any circumstance and on my life go back. So there's a real risk that it might end extremely badly. My third option is to tell my sister that I'm simply not emotionally ready for this, as every inch of my body is communicating this to me. But I have only thought about it for 1 day, so this might change. And then I'll suggest that I pass this time, and then me and my father can sort of take turns at participating in her events so that we don't have to see each other, and so that she doesn't have to feel like she's caught in between, or that she has to intervene or mediate between us, which, as she explained it, is actually the biggest issue for her. Now, I'm not a big fan of this because I have to give up territory to him, and there's another warrior-like part of me who is telling me absolutely not. You will give nothing to this demon of a man, and if he tries anything, you will fight back. But if that day ever comes around, I don't know if I'm strong enough to assert myself sufficiently to make him uncomfortable enough to avoid any future events. Keep in mind also that I'm dealing with a man who many suspect of being a sociopath. So yeah, that's probably not a battle any wise person would willingly take. Now, I don't have to decide for a while, but my mind is going in circles, and I'm caught somewhere in between self-pity and this wild fury of being unable to make sense of what's happening in my head and in my heart. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. This really is a tough situation because you made a stand and you said, look, you are out of my life. And I completely believe you when you say that's a really hard thing to do, because just like you described, you're now having to sacrifice relationships with your extended family while also pretty much putting your sister in the middle of all of this. And that's not fair for you, but also it's not your fault. It sounds like your dad's a piece of garbage and you were wise to step away and say no, enough is enough. So honestly, I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely take more time to consider my options, because obviously this literally just happened. So the emotions are all incredibly fresh, and I can only imagine how overwhelmed you probably feel. But hopefully with some time and some consideration, you can figure out exactly what's best for you and your situation, because what your dad put you through is absolutely unacceptable, and you did not deserve it in the slightest. My ignorant father feels that he's entitled to trespass on my neighbor's land, despite the fact that he yelled at my neighbor for trespassing on his. And I'm honestly so annoyed, and I seriously hope I never have to deal with this situation ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is something that went down between my entitled father, who lives a handful of miles away from me, and the neighbor who lives across the road from me, and I was mostly an annoyed viewer of the entire situation. So the road my father lives on has this middle section that is extremely poorly maintained for as long as he's lived there, and about a year and a half ago, he convinced the township to shut down and gate off that section, with the lower half of the road where most people live remaining as it was. The upper part where only my father lives, he was told would cease to be a public road, and since he owned all the land along it on both sides, it would effectively become his private property. So essentially, it would turn into an extended driveway for him. They told him that once it was official, they would come and put a sign at the beginning of it showing that it was no longer a public road, and that's exactly what they did. However, before the sign went up, my neighbor who had just moved in was driving around getting a feel for the area and turned down my father's future driveway extension. When my father saw him, he flipped out and started screaming at him, saying that he was trespassing on private property and that he was going to call the police and press charges, and how he would get his weapon if he didn't leave. Now, the whole time, my neighbor was trying to get out an apology, and when he realized he wasn't getting getting a word in edgewise, he just simply left. The sign eventually went up a few days later, and the neighbor never went back there ever again. Fast forward a few months, and my father has walked to my place and decides that for the walk back, he's going to cut through this same neighbor's property as it can act as a shortcut. The previous owner used to let him do this, so he thinks this is totally fine, even though a different person who has never given him permission owns it now. Well, my neighbor happens to come home while he's doing so, and he sees him on the property. Now, this neighbor has remained polite and friendly with my father in the time since the first incident. Whenever he sees him around my place, he calls out a friendly hello to my father, who proceeds to start running away as if he did something like really suspicious. My neighbor then hops on his ATV and tries to go find him, but my father hides in the tall weeds to avoid him. When he can't find my father, he calls the police, who question him, but since he won't admit to it and they can't prove it was him, nothing ever comes of it. Now, last week my father is over again, and I offhandedly mentioned needing to set up traps in my lawn and talk to this same neighbor. There's a mother groundhog on my neighbor's property, and its kids are trying to come over onto mine to dig. So I'm hoping to trap them and have my neighbor trap the mother so we can humanely relocate them, which is all just fairly normal stuff for this area. Well, my father, without saying a word to me or the neighbor, went over onto his property so that he could beat the groundhogs with a golf club. But it was too little for him to realize that my neighbor put up cameras after the last trespassing incident, and they have clear pictures of him this time. Well, my neighbor called the police, but being the epitome of grace, tells them that he won't press charges this time if my father doesn't lie about anything that he did. The police go talk to my father, and he actually lucks his way out of trouble by actually being honest, because he still feels completely justified in what he did. Regardless, the police inform him that the neighbor doesn't want him on his property ever again, as next time he definitely will be pressing charges. So today my father has another rant for me about how my neighbor is such a jerk for making such a big deal out of this, that he should be allowed to walk through there because the previous owner let him, and there was no reason to act like this towards him because he didn't do anything wrong. And my neighbor is a hypocrite because he trespassed on his property as well. And I honestly hope I never deal with this ever again. Yeah, your dad's a massive hypocrite. So he not only screams at your neighbor for stepping foot on his property, but then he has the audacity to turn around and be like, oh, but I can walk on his property. That is absolutely ridiculous, and his entire demeanor is completely out of line. So hopefully you don't have to deal with that again, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would be horribly embarrassed. My entitled father-in-law pressures my husband into getting a job interview, but it all completely backfires, with my father-in-law not only making a fool of himself, but also going out of his way to literally try and take the CFO's job right in front of his face, claiming that he's way more qualified than this idiot. And I'm honestly still blown away by his behavior, because this seriously has not settled well with me or my husband. Here's what happened. So my father-in-law is what you would call a typical old entitled jerk, and after 38 years of working at the same business, he has now been laid off. He just turned 59, and he has never worked for another company or looked for a job since he was a teenager. He pretty much got hired straight out of college. Despite it all, my father-in-law was convinced that he'd get a new job within weeks. My father-in-law is a delusional and headstrong man, and it's been about 2 months, and he hasn't even had a call back. Right now, he is spiraling. He discovered the nightmare that is LinkedIn, and is now posting insane things on LinkedIn. And he doesn't even understand that it isn't like Facebook. My father-in-law then basically bullied my husband into arranging him for an interview for a job at his friend's company, since they posted an opening on LinkedIn. The job aligned with his skills, and it had a decent wage. And sure, it won't pay like his old job, but it's an easy job with fair wages, great hours, and fantastic benefits. And my husband even did a couple of mock interviews with him. Now, a normal, sane person would be grateful and put their best foot forward for the interview, but not my father-in-law. He was rude to the receptionist because she didn't immediately offer him refreshments. He huffed and puffed because he was so upset that he had to wait. He was angry when he was told that he would get interviewed by the operations director and the finance manager instead of the CFO. He was rude, obnoxious, and bullish throughout the entire interview. My father-in-law then spent half the interview talking garbage about the CFO for not being a man of his word, because apparently he was supposed to be interviewed by the CFO, but at the last minute he no longer could. And then the other half of the interview, he spent that time trying to take the CFO's job as he was better qualified. In the last 15 to 20 minutes of the interview, the CFO and the CEO stepped in to say hello, and his rude self continued to talk garbage to the CFO right in his face. Straight after the interview, my husband got a call from his friend, and his friend was livid. My husband apologized profusely, and his friend was gracious enough to accept the apology. My husband and I both asked our father-in-law how the interview went, and he said he had a man-to-man moment with the CEO, and that the ignorant CFO friend of my husband will soon be out of a job. The man is so far into his delusional mindset that he simply couldn't believe it when my husband told him he's never getting a job there. My husband spent pretty much half the day yesterday cussing him out on the phone, and then after work, he drove down to his father's and then spent another hour just calling him out on all of his garbage. And I'm still absolutely blown away by the way my father-in-law acted. Yeah, that guy's a complete moron. Like seriously, who would go into an interview like that and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take the CFO's position right here and now? Like this guy came into the interview process completely wrong. First of all, this guy was completely delusional from the beginning. Not to mention the fact that he basically bullied the original poster's husband into getting this interview in the first place. But then when he finally shows up to the interview, he not only bullies the receptionist, but also tries to take the CFO's job. Like this guy is out of his mind if he thinks this is okay. There is literally no reason for this kind of behavior. Like what a terrible first impression. It's almost like he decided halfway through this interview that he didn't want the job that he was going for, but instead he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take the CFO's job. I'm way more qualified than this idiot, only to then express that opinion in front of the CFO and the CEO. Like you can tell this guy never had any other job besides the one he got laid off from. So hopefully you guys don't have to deal with this guy anytime soon, because your father-in-law sounds like an absolute nut job. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for siding with my friend about her husband's unfair inheritance choices? Because right now he is very upset with me, and right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my friend is married to a much older guy, and they have 2 kids that are elementary school age. This is her first marriage and his second, and he has 2 kids from his first marriage. My friend, let's call her Irene, works in education. She doesn't have a huge salary, but she does okay. While her husband, we'll call him Carl, will retire next year, and he's retiring from a very well-paying job. They live in the home that he bought before they met, only his name is on the deed. They pool their finances for household expenses, and she also contributes to the mortgage. With their recent marriage came the issue of organizing their affairs, among which was a will. The problem is that Carl is dead set on wanting his inheritance split equally between his 4 kids and Irene. This means they each inherit 20%, regardless of their ages or situation, with no caveats about leaving Irene and the younger kids in the house while the kids are underage. Essentially, Irene will have to sell the house to give each of the kids their share. Carl also doesn't want to make different arrangements while his 2 youngest kids are underage, as he is adamant that they should be treated equally. While this is fine on principle, the reality is that Carl will most likely be the first to pass away, and given his age, it's not likely to happen while his kids are still underage. The notary was a bit baffled by his choices, which he brought up at the meeting to discuss the terms. Irene had no idea this was Carl's plan, and she feels vulnerable, and honestly, understandably so in my opinion. The notary tried to suggest to Carl that it would be more prudent to set conditions about the ages of the kids, and perhaps also to have a surviving spouse live in the house, which is then sold and distributed among the kids once the spouse passes away too, with all of that being split up equally, of course. Now, here's the thing. Carl was not open to any provisions that the notary suggested for Irene having some form of buffer while the kids are still at home. He all but called Irene a gold digger and said he was sure that she was resourceful enough to take care of the kids, but that he had to think about 4 kids and not just 2. Carl seems to love all 4 kids equally, and as a side note, his older kids do not like Irene, and that is mutual. They sided with their mother in the divorce, since Irene met Carl after the divorce, which the ex and the older kids don't believe. Irene came back from the notary crying her eyes out. I dropped off something at their house by chance and came while they were having an argument about Carl's choices. Carl considers me to be a rational, intelligent person in his words, and asked what my opinion was. But when I sided with Irene, he got angry with me and called me a jerk, all because I didn't realize that important life choices should be made with logic and not emotions. But I pointed out that his choices seem illogical and potentially harmful to his 2 younger kids, but he just straight up disagreed. So honestly, am I the jerk for speaking up in the way that I did? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think Carl absolutely needs to check himself before he ruins his relationship with Irene. Like the way he has this set up now really does kind of ruin Irene, because she's not gonna have a place to live. And for him to be like, oh, you're just a gold digger, what are you talking about? That's insane in my opinion. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for speaking your mind, because this guy absolutely absolutely had it coming. My entitled manager says that she's gonna write me up with salary deduction if I won't give a doctor's note for wanting my time off. So I decide to maliciously comply, forcing her to not only give me 3 extra days of paid sick leave, but also getting paid out the 120 hours overtime that I wasn't given. And I'm honestly so satisfied by getting this revenge. Here's what happened. So I've been working for this company for 3 years already. I work on retail and our managers are always micromanaging and will write us up each time, even just by breathing. And you can tell that this is how they really are, just so far up all of our noses all the time. Especially since one time, I was written up for eating during my lunch break in our shop, but that's a story for another time. Now, for just a bit of background, my days off are scheduled every Thursday, and I was already feeling sick before my day off. I had waited until this day to rest and hope that I could feel better, but when the end of my day off comes along, I still feel sick. So I inform my boss if I can use my excess hours and not come to work the next day since I am so sick. For a bit of context, our company never pays for our overtime, but expects us to work 12 hours every single day, and every day they give us 2 hours excess. And since I've never requested until that particular day, I had racked up about 120 excess hours overtime, which can be used for days off. I had only requested 1 extra day off, which would amount to maybe 10 hours to be deducted from my long extra hours accumulated. But it was then that my boss did something that honestly blew my mind. She said she was going to write me up if I don't provide a doctor's note, and she informed me that even if I provide one, she won't deduct it to my hours. So I comply, and I went to the doctor, and I take a medical note, and I was given a 3-day recommended rest, and I sent it to my manager. So now she has no choice but to let me have 3 additional days of paid sick leave, and I won't be back to the shop until Monday, instead of just giving me the 1 day so I can get some rest. Saturday comes along, and the shop has a lot of issues without me, and my reliever is having a hard time coping from work, so my manager actually calls me, and you know what? I just didn't respond to any of her messages, nor any of her calls, and I just wanted to rest well. Fast forward to Monday, and I actually reported her to the company to the labor's claim. The company was forced to pay me the 120 hours of overtime, and it's so great to see things work out in my favor. Yeah, that's a classic case of a manager having some kind of power trip, and instead of just listening to their employee and being like, okay, you get the extra day off, they now get to deal with their employee being gone for 3 days instead of 1. Like seriously, just give people the time off that they need to feel better. I will never understand a manager who's going to be like, oh, if you take any hours off without a doctor's note, I'm going to write you up. Like that is so counterintuitive, and I would hate having to work for someone like that. So good for the original poster for reporting them and getting those overtime hours, because the way she was treating you is absolutely unacceptable. Entitled coworkers demand that me and my department never use their computers ever again, despite the fact that the only time we use their computers is when we're covering their shift. So I decided to maliciously comply, resulting in them scrambling to find someone to cover for them when I refused to do so. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I used to work permanent nights. On nights, we often had sickness at the last minute that no one was willing to come in and cover. So we all used to help out one another. We didn't do it for the praise or for the additional money, even though there wasn't any. We did it because we were colleagues for years, and there was literally no one else. Inevitably, our work was taken for granted. The managers never thanked us for helping them out of this mess, but they also started to assume that we would cover everything. So they made less and less effort to arrange cover for absence, or even planned absences that they knew about in advance. One night before work, I came into work and received an awful email complaining about staff in our department using the computers of another department. Now, we had our own computers, but the only time my department ever used the other department's computers was when we were covering their absence. The email chain showed the other department complaining about us to my manager, who sent out an email to all the night staff in my department saying to us, from now on, do not use the other department's computers. Now, when I read that, I was fuming because, as I said, we only did it to help out and to stop the other departments having to cover night staff on such short notice. So I thought to myself, okay, fine, that's how it is then. The very next night, the other department is short-staffed again. The supervisor on that shift asked me to cover their department, but I just straight up say, nope, I can't do that. I've been told not to use their computers by my manager. The supervisor then says, oh no, that's okay, you can use them. But I say to her, no, I can't. My manager told me not to under any circumstances. So she gets her manager to call me, the same manager who complained about us, and says to me, for this one shift, you can use our computers, as if she's doing me any kind of favor. So I say to her, no, I really can't. You are not my manager. I cannot defy my manager's instructions. And you know what? what? Because they can't get my manager on the line that late at night, another supervisor had to come in last minute and cover the shift. And I honestly am so glad I was able to get back at these people, especially after all the mess they made for me and my coworkers. Yeah, these people found out that you shouldn't bite the hand that feeds you, because it sounds like the original poster and their department literally bailed out this other department so many times. So for them to act like, oh my god, stop using our computers, and completely forgetting that this department literally covers your back almost all the time, like that in my opinion shows how spoiled this other department was, and it further proves in my mind that you know what, sometimes it is okay to say no, that you should never be expected to cover someone else's shift, especially if that person's gonna act this ungrateful. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that her daughter would have a better life if she gave up her vices? Because right now she is very mad at me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I've been friends with someone we will call Emily since middle school. We're the same age, and I just want to preface a couple things. Emily and I had similar upbringings. We grew up on the poverty line, using food banks and being close to being evicted as children. I am also child-free by choice, as I am self-aware enough right now to know that I'm too selfish of a person now to have children. I had nothing as a kid, and I want all my things right now. Emily also is a relatively selfish person, but she is definitely not self-aware and does not like to sacrifice her toys in life for anybody. Unfortunately, this also includes her 6-year-old daughter, who we will call Emma. Emily has many vices that she enjoys. She enjoys shopping, alcohol, fast food, and most of all, cigarettes and the herb, if you know what I mean. Money is tight for everyone, but she ensures that she always has what she needs, especially those last two. In the past few months, Emma has asked for several things, and the answer has always been no. The biggest one being a bike for her birthday, and then more recently, swim lessons, as it's June and her friends all go to the rec center to swim. Yesterday, while running errands, we were in a store and Emma asked her again if she could have swim lessons because she wanted to be able to go to the pool with her friends over summer break from school. Emily once again told her that they were too expensive and that they couldn't afford it. And when she said that, Emma started to cry. Emily apologized to her and explained that money was tight before turning around to pay for her 2 cartons of cigarettes. When we got back to their place, Emma, who was still upset, went to the couch and put on a movie. I pulled Emily into her bedroom and I took the opportunity to explain that I believe it's important to Emma to take those lessons. Emily then repeated that she simply didn't have the money, and I said to her, "You don't have the money for her, but you have the money to smoke?" Emily then immediately became defensive and called me a jerk who just doesn't understand what it's like to be a single mom. Now, I agreed with her, but I reminded her that we both know what it's like to miss out on things in childhood, and it felt like Emma was going to suffer the same fate. Emily basically told me to leave if I was going to accuse her of being a bad parent before leaving her bedroom and storming outside to have a cigarette. I ended up leaving after saying goodbye to Emma, and now Emily is refusing to speak to me. I am just worried that this kid is going to be on the outside looking in because her mom isn't prioritizing her, but I also know that I could have worded things much better. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm not sure what to do with Emily. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really does sound like Emily's neglecting her daughter pretty much across the board. And also, it's not a bad thing for a kid to have swim lessons. Like, that really is a valuable skill to have no matter who you are, but most especially if you're a kid. Leaving her to figure out how to swim on her own is just completely irresponsible. And she's missing out on having fun with her friends, which in my opinion is just so unfair. So no, you're not the jerk for telling the truth, because clearly, based on how defensive Emily got, this is something that she clearly has been thinking about. And just because you said what she was probably thinking, in my opinion, doesn't make you judgmental or a bad friend. Am I the jerk for exposing my mom's lifelong grudge against me, all because I was born on the wrong day that she didn't plan for? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm the middle child of 5 siblings, and I always knew that my mom treated me very differently from the rest of my siblings. It caused my parents' marriage to end because my dad made it very clear that he wouldn't tolerate her being so different with me, and this was after he tried to figure out why she was so different with me. A few close friends knew and said it was postpartum depression from when she had me, that apparently only affected her ability to bond with me and not any of my 4 siblings, just me, the middle child. I have a sibling younger than me and she bonded with her just fine. I was a teenager when I got into a fight with my mom one day and she accused me of always hating her and never wanting her to be happy. I asked what she meant by that, and she told me that I had to come into this world on the one day that she had other plans, that it was bad enough I was overdue when I was born, but I apparently prevented her from reading a book that released that day that she made plans to read months in advance. She told me that I just had to be born that day so she was too tired to read it on the release date, and that she was weeks behind. She said that I couldn't even be born normally like my siblings, and I was a C-section baby. She told me that I messed up her plans so bad, and I never even seemed to care about it. Then she mentioned how much I cried when she was around, and how good I did with my dad. She said it made her seem like she was such a monster, and none of my other siblings were like that. She told me I clearly always wanted to come between her and dad, and she was pretty serious about it too, with her finishing up by saying that I started screwing her over the day I was born. Now, it really shocked me when she told me all of this. At first, I didn't believe it, and I just didn't want to believe it. Dad and I even did a DNA test around that time because we were like, okay, maybe she's making up a dumb reason so we won't know that she cheated. But I am definitely my dad's kid. The DNA confirmed it. My relationship with my mom is as bad as the day I was born, apparently, and I get a hard time from some family friends and extended family members who see me not being close with my mom as me being awful to her for no reason. They put the bad relationship on me. And at my grandparents' house on Saturday, I got so tired of the comments and my mom sneering at me the whole time that I finally exposed what she said to me when I was a teenager and the blame that she put on me for being born on the wrong day as the reason why we have a bad relationship. My mom half admitted because she got so angry that she verbally lashed out at me. It created an absolute nightmare, and some family members think I made a big deal out of nothing, but others were disgusted by my mom. I was told I was wrong to expose her like that, and my mom said that I had no business doing that. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Yeah, your mom's a massive piece of garbage. Like seriously, your mom's a horrible person. Who would hate their child all because you couldn't read a book that you were waiting for months in advance? Like seriously, that is really crazy for someone to say, and there's no way that's a rational reason why you would hate your kid. Like the original poster didn't ask to be born at that time. Like they had literally no control over that. So for the mom to be like, oh yeah, you ruined my life the day that you were born. Like no, he didn't. He didn't do anything to you. The original poster has been putting up with this kind of treatment for like their entire life. They've been badmouthed, they've been treated terribly, and then when the truth is finally let out, they find out that this is the reason why she doesn't like him. Like, I'm sorry, I love to read just like the next person, but for her to seriously treat her child like this, all because she couldn't read a book on the release date, like that goes beyond being a bad mother. That straight up proves that this lady's insane. And you know what? When it comes to you exposing her in front of the entire family, I would have done the exact same thing. Anybody who's like, wow, you made a big deal out of nothing, or people telling you, oh, you were wrong to expose her like that. It's like, what are you talking about? She's literally being antagonistic and actively making horrible comments about the original poster behind their back, or even just making snide faces at them. Like at that point, after 21 years of dealing with that, I would have exposed her right there on the spot and felt no remorse. So anyone trying to defend her actions are complete morons, and these are not the kind of people you want in your life. And in my opinion, I think it absolutely is your business to tell everybody the truth, that your insane mother hates you because she couldn't read a book, because that's what this all just boils down to. That's the entire reason she doesn't like you, and that is just not a good reason at all. So no, I would not feel guilty about this in the slightest, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would be making plans to never talk to her ever again, because this behavior is legitimately crazy, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. My crazy entitled fiance cancels our wedding a week before simply because he was so angry after a minor argument that we had. But now, after reality has set in, my fiance has come back to me begging for another chance. But after being treated so poorly and humiliated in front of all of our friends and family, I now no longer trust him, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So, as the title states, my ex-fiance has canceled our wedding a week before it took place. We've been together for about 6 years, and we've lived together for context. And what happened basically was an argument that escalated. We were heading to my program graduation, which is a smaller event of about 10 students, and on that morning as we were getting ready, I asked if he would be okay to wear one of his button-ups instead of the shirt that he had on so we could get a nice photo. When I said that, he was annoyed, and he snapped at me by saying, "Why do I have to do things for others?" And I told him that he truly doesn't have to, and that I was just asking, but ultimately it is his choice. He ended up putting the button-up on, and we arrived at the ceremony, and everything went fine, and he was very happy for me. However, on the way home in the car, traffic was filling up and he was annoyed. I offered an alternative route that I know will cut down on some of the time, and the exit to that route was coming up. Well, he didn't take it, and I was slightly annoyed about it because he was cranky with me about traffic. So I asked why he didn't take it. Well, when I said that, he started full on yelling that my tone is rude and that he doesn't have to drive drive the way that I tell him to. I replied by saying that I literally just asked and that I don't actually care about what route he takes. He was the one having any kind of problem with traffic. He then blew up and blamed me for getting him upset. When we got home, I apologized and explained that I didn't mean to come across as mean. I also said that screaming doesn't help in any situation and that we really should have talked instead. He basically explained that an apology doesn't solve anything and that he needs such things to not happen, otherwise he would continue exploding at me because, according to him, that's the only time I listen to him. After a few hours, we spoke again, with him apologizing for yelling and I apologized for the miscommunication that happened. Now, despite resolving this, later that night, I was crying due to the fact that he so easily yells at me when he's upset. I was so upset that even on such an important day for me, I felt like he was picking fights. And to add to this, yelling is such a red flag for me, and I never do that to him or anyone for that matter. The next morning, we were having breakfast, and he asked me why I seemed so gloomy, so I told him that everything's okay, but I'm just processing what happened yesterday. He then asked me to please share with him, so I told him that I felt like my special day was kind of ruined, all because of the fighting about things that we could have easily resolved. Well, when I said that, he just immediately lost his mind and started getting angry again. He blamed me for the fights, and when I replied that I didn't think it's fair to blame me, he got angrier and said that he can't do this, that I'm not a good communicator, and that he can't get married like this. And when he said that, I was just completely shocked. I thought he was talking out of emotion like many times before, but this time, he actually ended up sending a mass text message to all of our guests to let them know that the wedding is called off. I was flabbergasted at the quickness, and I was so confused. We started arguing and then had to leave for our days. Later that day, when we returned, I asked if this is truly something that he wants to call off everything, and he responded with a confident yes. Now, what I thought was an action out of anger seemed to be a solid decision for him. For the rest of the night and the next day, I tried to fix things between us. After many hours of talking and lots of crying from my end, he kept explaining that I don't communicate well and that this cancellation was my fault. I tried to offer some kind of solutions, but he was full on with the decision to cancel and break up. I asked if we could give it another day or two, that this is what he wants before we cancel the venue. Well, he declined and asked to cancel the venue and the vendors immediately. So that's exactly what we did. The next day, I went on an errands run and then I met with my friend. It was truly such a hard day and I was so heartbroken, and I was still digesting everything that happened. When I came home, he asked to talk and started crying that he regrets everything he said in the last days, that he didn't mean it, he was angry, and he wasn't thinking straight. He said he will start therapy and he wanted to do couples counseling now as well, which is something I offered many times. Anyways, he apologized profusely and kept asking if we can mend everything or whether he messed up. Now, I was almost sure that this regret would come along, and honestly, maybe it was mean to say this, but I said, yeah, you messed up big time. You made a rash decision that hurt our relationship big time. There is no going back from here. He pretty much begged for another chance, but everything is canceled and my trust is completely shattered. The wedding is supposed to be in 2 days. His aunt was supposed to be on the way to our house so that she could help us pack our decorations, and now there's just no way we can schedule everything again, and frankly, I don't want to at this point. This is not the first time he cancels plans or breaks up with me during a disagreement. Everyone is telling us that this is fixable, that clearly we love each other, so if we want, this situation doesn't have to be the end of the relationship. But I just don't understand how. So much time, effort, and money has gone into this wedding, and that's now completely done. And plus, more importantly, I simply can't trust him anymore. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. We were supposed to go on honeymoon right afterwards, so now I'm thinking about going by myself. He asked if we can go together and spend that time to fix things, but I'm just questioning everything right now. But I'm thinking about going by myself so I can do some soul searching. Should I call it quits and move on with my life, or take his word and start couples counseling? I love him with my entire heart, and we had many loving experiences between us over the years. We don't have any issues aside from such incidents, but I don't know whether it's actually possible to come back from this one, because right now I am very frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, this is a horrible situation to be stuck in. For starters, if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would ever go back to this guy. Like seriously, just look at the way he's acting. This guy made the rash decision overnight to cancel your wedding and text a bunch of people to try and air out your dirty laundry, all over an argument about traffic the day before. Like, it almost seems like he did this just to punish you for making him mad, but even then, this guy is 30 years old. There's no good reason for him to freak out like like that and then start burning down everything he's ever worked for with the original poster, all because he's upset about an argument that he escalated. And it really does suck that he's like, oh yeah, you made me angry. You're the reason this all fell apart. You're not good at communicating. This guy's projecting so hard, it's not even funny. He is literally just saying all the things that he's doing to you and trying to gaslight you into believing that you're the problem. But no, you are definitely not the problem. This guy is a giant walking red flag. And from the sounds of it, it does seem like you're really catching on to that. Now, for me, the icing on the cake is when he came back and said, oh, I'm so sorry, can we fix this? And I'm just so glad that you came back and said, no, we can't fix it. You messed up big time. And that, in my opinion, was the best decision you've ever made in this scenario, because I think in a roundabout way, this guy was testing you. He wanted to see how close to the line he could go with how crazy he was acting. This guy literally canceled your wedding a week before, and then he comes back to you and says, oh, I'm so sorry, let's please try to fix this. I'll go to couples counseling with you. It's like, dude, at that point, this is way too late. You've ruined everything. You've completely humiliated the original poster, and in my opinion, there is no way you can ever come back from this. Like, I would feel the exact same way the original poster feels, where they just straight up say, no, I just can't trust this guy anymore. So in my opinion, I think this guy did you a huge favor because he does not sound like a fun person to be around or someone you want to spend the rest of your life dealing with, because this guy does not sound healthy or safe to be around in the slightest. And I think that you deserve so much better than what this guy is trying to give you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not inviting someone for dinner, all because she made a big deal online about me having a cat in my house? Because now she's saying that I'm a mean girl who could have easily invited her to this party. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. A while back, I posted a picture to my Instagram stories of my cat sitting next to my counter on his own stool while I was cooking. And mind you, he was watching while also being next to my counter, not anywhere near the food. He doesn't go on counters and he doesn't go anywhere near the food. My friend, who we will call Rose, reposted it with her own caption. She put a puke face emoji and says, "You just can't eat at everybody's house." Now, I ignored it and went about my business. She is, by the way, very much the type of person who just regurgitates whatever popular phrase she sees on social media. If there's pineapple on pizza, she'll call you a monster. If raisins are in cookies, then this is why she has trust issues. And she also doesn't trust people who don't like dogs. Stuff like that just makes her completely delusional. She has other traits that make up for it, but truthfully, I do tend to avoid any one-on-one time that I might have with her. Fast forward, and about a month ago, I hosted a small get-together so I could show off some of the cookware that I obtained. I had a whole little shindig with home-prepared food, and I had a lot of fun times with my pals. But here's the thing, I didn't invite Rose. She found out after folks posted on their Instagram stories, and she confronted me over it, saying that I was giving high school mean girl vibes. I told her that she has made it clear that she doesn't eat at the homes of people who have cats, so why would I invite her to a dinner party? Well, when I said that, she got defensive and said that she could have just come and not eaten anything. But I said that in the future, maybe she should be more careful about what she says, because to me, it was very clear. Rose has continued to tell people that I'm giving high school mean girl turns into a nurse later on in life, despite the fact that I'm an accountant. So am I really the jerk for not inviting her? Because right now, I am seriously annoyed. Yeah, I'm right there with the original poster. If someone's gonna complain like that and make some wild assumptions about my house, especially unprompted, then in my opinion, that's honestly everything I would need to know about them. Because here's the thing, if someone shows you exactly how they are, or exactly how they feel about you or a situation, then I personally think you should believe them. Sure, you can assume the best out of people and think maybe they're like being sarcastic or something like that, but it seems like this Rose lady has a really mean side to her, and that is just not fair for the original poster or anybody else that might have to deal with her. So no, you're not the jerk, because honestly, I would have done the exact same thing. My entitled neighbor complains about any noise that's ever made in the apartment building that we live in. And after dealing with this nearly every single day for the past few weeks, I now feel completely trapped in my own home. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that our neighbor is downright crazy. We've lived in our apartment for 4 years and we love it. However, the past year has been a nightmare. We've gotten a new neighbor, not in our own hallway, but she is in the adjoining building and hallway, so she shares a wall with us. The first few weeks were fine. We talked with her and told her that if there was ever an issue, we were open to communication. We've never had any issues before, but due to us having a dog, even though it's a small dog, we'd like to be upfront with all of our neighbors, just so we can have some kind of healthy relationship with the people around us. But after the first few weeks, the problems really started happening. Suddenly, we got complaints about our dog barking. And not just one complaint, but we would instead get like 3 or 4 a week. Our dog is the most gentle old soul there is, and he only barks on 3 occasions. When the doorbell rings and he's happy to see you, when he gets spooked by something, which is rare, and when we play, which we only do for maybe 5 to 10 minutes at a time because we know the sound can be annoying. He never barks when he's home alone or otherwise. He's very chill and very mellow. He's made friends with everyone in our hallway, and several of them have been dog sitting if we ever had to leave for extended periods of time, and they all say he's the easiest dog to look after. Anyways, we talked to the new superintendent, who wasn't allowed to elaborate who the complaints were coming from, as they were reported anonymously. But we soon found out very quickly, because the neighbor, who I'll call Karen from now on, started banging on the walls whenever she felt like we were too loud. One weekend at around 10:30 a.m., we had been playing with our dogs for maybe 5 minutes when she aggressively banged on our wall. Mind you, we live in a concrete building with 30-centimeter thick walls. I talked to everybody else in our hallway, but no one was bothered with our dog. We live in a building with several other people, and in the surrounding buildings there are dogs as well. Dogs who bark and make all kinds of noise. We tried to keep it down, and for a while we thought that was the end of it. But recently, this entitled Karen started complaining again, not just to the landlord and the superintendent, but also in our Facebook group designated for our area. While we were away on holiday out of the country, this entitled Karen decided that now was the time to do a long rant in said Facebook group, telling everyone how horrible we were at keeping our dog quiet, that we make him bark just to annoy her. And she even made some really inappropriate comments about our life, basically implying that we're making loud noises on purpose. And now at this point, I feel trapped in my own home. I'm afraid to do anything that might set her off and give us another complaint. But luckily, the superintendent is on our side. He and the other neighbors have told us that we're not the only ones she's complained about. She's complained about a newborn baby that was crying, and a developmentally disabled child who can't talk and therefore makes noises instead. She even complained about someone talking on their own balcony. This entitled Karen told that person to respect her privacy and that she didn't want to hear what they were talking about, even though they were 3 apartments away. I honestly hate this woman so much, and so do all of my neighbors, and I'm honestly feeling so stuck and I just don't know what to do. Yeah, this lady sounds super entitled. Apartment buildings are just noisy in general. People are doing their own things, they have all kinds of stuff going on, and frankly, people are going to make noise. And she knew that moving into this place. So I wouldn't feel too bad about this because clearly she's on the wrong side of this situation, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would be banding together with all my other neighbors and possibly forwarding some kind of formal complaint against her, as it really seems like she's only complaining on purpose, and not because there's any actual noise in the building. Because the way she's acting is super unfair, and you deserve to have a respectful neighbor instead of whatever this entitled Karen is giving you instead. My wife has been spending way too much time with a former coworker to the point where it's disrupting our marriage and causing a lot of fighting between the two of us. And now, after noticing so many red flags from this guy, I'm now convinced that something might be going on between the two of them. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old male, and I've been married to my wife going on 9 years. Recently, we've had a fight over one of her former coworkers, and for the sake of the story, we'll call this coworker Matt. Matt and my wife hadn't been working together for a long time, maybe a couple of months at most, and I noticed some behavior that had me suspicious and feeling disrespected. My wife began constantly talking about Matt. It was as if every sentence from her was in some relation to Matt. It would be Matt this and Matt that. It eventually got to the point that I asked her if she could speak about him less, as it was becoming annoying that every conversation had to do with him. A few weeks later, my wife tells me that she is going to have a girls' night out with her female coworkers, and I think that's cool that she's going to go out and have some fun with them. She states that they'll be going to an audition for one coworker, and then they're going to hit the bars. And at the time, I believed that this was all good, but then just guess who's also going to be there for this all-female event. That's right, Matt's going to be there too. I found it odd that an all-female get-together would also involve a guy, and just to get a stereotype out of the way, Matt is straight. Another time involves Matt inviting my wife and son to a trampoline place. So when that happened, I took the opportunity to invite myself to meet the guy who my wife constantly talks about and invites or even tags along with everything that she does. We get to the place and spend about 2 hours there. Matt has spoken to me 0 times outside of introductions and won't even acknowledge that I exist. Now, I am quite an intimidating person, so it can be difficult to approach me and engage with me. That being said, if I were Matt and had the opportunity to speak with a woman's husband that I'm constantly talking to and inviting her places, I would absolutely get to know him. This gave me another red flag about this guy. Time goes by and my wife is talking about Matt Zero, but still texting him all the time. One Saturday after our son's gymnastics class, we get home and my wife exclaims, "Well, there goes my convertible ride." Now I'm confused and I ask what she's talking about. She then tells me that Matt bought a new convertible and was going to leave as soon as we got home to go ride around with him. And this was yet another red flag as to why this wasn't even brought up before. I believe everyone can do as they want and don't need permission to do things that they want to do, but I do think that giving your partner a heads up prior to doing things is still important. My wife starts telling me that Matt has some gifts for our son, and I just find it odd that another man is buying gifts for my son when it is neither the holidays nor his birthday. And this gives me a yellow flag at the very least about what this guy is doing. Now here's the kicker that relates to him not speaking to me. When I would pick my wife up from work, my son would be with me. Matt would deliberately walk in front of my car and a couple of spaces down before returning by going around the back of my car and only speaking to my son. Now I found this extremely disrespectful, as he went out of his way to not acknowledge me or speak to me, and would sneakily try to speak to my son and my wife. Matt decided he would invite my wife and other women to a rave, and there's nothing wrong with dancing, but the issue arises that he did not invite any males to go, nor did he invite any romantic partners of the women. Well, I told my wife that I would like to go, and she told Matt, and when she told him, he canceled the plans. And this was yet another huge red flag. This guy would be willing to invite women to a rave and then cancel when a romantic partner decides that he would like to go too. He tried to shift the blame onto me by saying he couldn't buy the tickets because I hadn't made up my mind even though I said I was going. After all of this, I decided that Matt is not a good guy, and he is trying to weasel his way into my marriage. I mean, there's just too much that I'm seeing that I just can't ignore. Finally, we get to what has caused a huge fight between my wife and I, which is a stupid package. My wife ordered something, and me, being curious, asked her what it was. Well, she tells me it's none of your effing business, and this just brings up a giant red flag. I then ask her who it's for, and again, I get the exact same response. So eventually, I pick up the package and I ask my wife what it is, and yet again, it's apparently none of my business. Well, I get angry because of all of this Matt stuff, and I yell out, "Why are you being so secretive?" She yells at me saying that it's a gift for Father's Day, and she wanted it to be a surprise. And yes, for the record, I did think it was a gift for Matt. So now, my wife doesn't feel like I trust her, even though it's not her that I don't trust, and now she is not speaking with me. I find it ridiculous that we are having a fight over a random coworker that should mean absolutely nothing to our relationship. Yet here we are. You would think after almost 9 years of marriage that some nobody wouldn't be able to cause this amount of friction. So seriously, am I overreacting and thinking that Matt is up to no good? Am I overreacting that Matt might be trying to weasel his way in, and that my wife is being blind to everything that he is trying? What should I do? Yeah, this sounds like an exhausting situation, and the fact that your wife isn't able to have some kind of self-reflection about all of this, in my opinion, speaks volumes to what is actually happening. Because I think you're right. I think Matt is absolutely trying to weasel his way into your marriage, and in my opinion, it's almost like Matt has become your wife's boyfriend. Like, this guy avoids you like the plague. He doesn't talk to you, he doesn't look at you, but still has the audacity to try and talk to your son without talking to you first. Like, that part alone made me incredibly angry, because in my opinion, if you're gonna talk to somebody's kid, you absolutely talk to the parents first. You don't just walk up and talk to the kids, you address the parents first and foremost, and you don't go around that just because you might know the kids under some circumstances. That is incredibly inappropriate and super sketchy. Like, that alone would make me lose my mind if I was in the original poster shoes. On top of that, all these parties that Matt is trying to organize, where the wife is invited but the husband isn't, is all just super sketchy and just does not look good. And hey, maybe this is innocent. Maybe there's nothing going on between the two of them, and it might just be a really good friendship of some kind. But if it really was that good of a friendship, then Matt would step up and try to be your friend as well. But instead, he's been running away from you and trying to actively avoid you at all cost. So no, you are definitely not overreacting, because I definitely think that Matt is up to something that's really sketchy. And in my opinion, I think it would really be good to try and get to the bottom of this, because this scenario sounds like an absolute nightmare. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything Everything will be linked down below in the description.